Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hi.
Good morning, Mr. Odungu.
Yes, good morning. I can see the speakers, the guests are here. Number of participants as well. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Yes. So welcome everyone, and thanks so much for being punctual. I am Jonathan Odongo. I can see the co-convener Issa is already here. The speakers, Hamdi Ashed from Tunisia is here. El Shaddai Berhanu from Ethiopia representing. The guests, Dr. Priscilla Gitonga is here. Dr. Alpha Patrick is here already. Eva from Namibia has joined. And Ben Ntale, Benedict from Uganda, welcome aboard. And Benedict is replacing Philip, whom we had earlier engaged, but due to unavoidable engagements elsewhere, had to request to be represented by someone else. So welcome, Ben. I can see Ikal representing Kenya is here. Bioba Zambia is here.
Yes.
Yes, welcome, welcome, welcome. So, okay, we are so excited for this. So I'd like to start by saying that we are pleased to have this kind of diversity actually, because I just realized that in terms of governance, we are covered from Eswatini, that's a monarchy, to Ethiopia, that is an ethnic federalism, to Nigeria, federal state. We have both presidential and semi-presidential democracies, Kenya included, and so on and so forth. And geographically, also, the diversity is so exciting. We have Kenya, which we can safely say has the world's largest permanent desert lake, that is Lake Turkana, and Ikal will tell us something about that. We have Namibia, that is the driest country in the sub-Saharan continent, and also named after the oldest desert in the world. We have also Ethiopia, that has the largest water reserves in Africa, that is looking at the 14 major rivers flowing from the highlands. We have Tunisia, the northernmost part of Tunisia. Cape Angela is actually the northernmost part of the continent. So this diversity, Nigeria, Issa, and Dr. Alpha also know that Nigeria has a lot of unique stuff, leading us in population as well. So I'd like to I'd like to now go straight to introducing the speakers and the guests, and I'll let the speakers and the guests introduce themselves. And before that, Issa, the co-convener, should go introduce himself, and then let the speakers do that. Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I am pleased to be here. My name is Issa Ibn Muhammad from Nigeria. Sitting is co-convener of the virtual conference on environment and politics in Africa. Briefly, this idea just came in as an afterthought after a conversation we had with my brother there, Jonathan, about the African continent, and mostly about how politics and policies affect the environment. That has become highly topical as in terms of global politics. And so we decided to say, why end the conversation there? Why not bring other Africans on board to share thoughts and share experiences as regards the topic of discussion today? And so that conversation that ensued between ourselves has brought us here today to put together this conference on environment and politics in Africa. The major point is for us to be able to listen in to all of our colleagues across the continent and share experiences that are of course peculiar to different environments, and so that at the end of it we can actually chart a way forward for the continent as it concerns the global environmental crisis that we face today. And so on behalf of myself and Jonathan Odongo, I welcome each and every one of you to this conference, and I hope that we have a fruitful conversation. Just like Jonathan has said, the conversation is going to go smoothly according to the agenda. All of you have copies of the agenda. And so after we take introduction of speakers, we will go into the discussion. We will start from Tunisia to Uganda to Namibia to Eswatini to Zambia to Nigeria, Ethiopia, and then to Tanzania. These conversations, we hope we will be able to learn a few things from the experiences of our brothers across the continent. So good morning from my end.
Okay, thanks so much, Isa. So the speakers kindly and the guests, beginning with Hamdi, say hello in the national indigenous language of Tunisia.
Aslama. Aslama.
Is it Assalamu alaikum? Is it?
Yes, it's right. So good morning, everybody. I introduce myself. My name is Hamdi Hashed. I'm environmental and climate change expert. I'm working actually with Friedrich Naumann Stiftung. It's a German foundation who take care here in Tunisia about media development and also some various projects about eco-development in Tunisia and Libya. So we are happy today to join you and to meet all of you. We talk about our continent, Africa, and what we have facing like challenges in the coming periods. Actually, climate change and environment is not something that we can define as luxury. No, it's actually we are right now in Tunisia, we are suffering from many problems. One of them is economic crisis. One of the reasons of this economic crisis actually is climate change. Because we have a lack of water, Tunisia is facing actually a water crisis. We are below international standard. FAO, Food Agriculture Organization, has defined the part of the individual part. It's around 1,000 meter cube per person. In Tunisia, we have 428. It's below the international standard. So we have many problems.
Hamdi,
yes.
Hello, Hamdi.
Yeah.
What we wanted was for all of the speakers and the guests to introduce themselves before we go into the conversation proper.
Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. And so Uganda, Intala, are you there? Okay, and Namibia?
Yes, Namibia is here.
Okay, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. So this is Eva Shitatala, and I come from Namibia. Obviously, now I'm based in Germany for a few months ago. Since a few months ago. So yeah, I am an environmental consultant, worked for 7 years in developmental projects and focusing on policy and resource management. So I'm really happy to be here and join the conversation. Thank you
very much. Thank you very much, Eva. Sinze from Eswatini. Is she here? Okay. Mioba, can we have you? Miova, can we have you? Yeah.
Yes. Hi, my name is Miova Bumba. I am an environmental advocate. I also work full-time in wildlife conservation with WWF Zambia. I do community-based natural resources management between the rural communities of Zambia, Namibia, and Angola. But on my personal level, I do a lot of environmental advocacy. So for this conference, I am going to express my own views, not the views of my employer. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Miyobo Bumba. Okay, Aliyu, can we have you from Nigeria? Aliyu, can we have you? Okay, can we have Ethiopia? El Shaddai?
Hello, how are you? My name is El Shaddai Girma Berhanu, and I am a third-year undergraduate student majoring in environmental engineering at the Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta, Georgia, USA. Currently, I'm in Addis Ababa, and I'm also the founder of Green Ethiopia, which is a platform for creating awareness and educating Ethiopians on current environmental challenges that we face in our country. And our goal is to lead in solving some of the most demanding environmental challenges in Ethiopia and join the country's movement to a green economy. So I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you very much, El Shaddai. We're also happy to have you here. Ikel from Kenya, can we have you?
Good morning, good evening for those, good afternoon. I do not know if you can hear me. I am not in good network, that's why my video is off. It's really good to be here. My name is Ika Langile. I work with Friends of Lake Turkana, an indigenous organization that works for indigenous communities within the northern Kenya, the Turkana Basin as a whole. And I'm happy to be here and looking forward to good conversations.
Thank you very much, Ikal. We're also happy to have you here. Aliyu, are you back? Can we have you? Aliyu, are you back? Can we have you? Okay, Pamela from Tanzania, can we have you?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, yeah, go on,
hello?
Do your introduction.
Yes, I'm here. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, we can hear you, go on. Go on, please, go on, please. Okay, Pamela, can we have you from Tanzania? Okay, Pamela is not here. Jonathan Odongo, we can begin the conversation proper. Please carry on.
Before we carry on, Isa, you can see the guests are here. There's Dr. Alpha and Dr. Priscilla.
Yeah.
Yes, so they can kindly go ahead and introduce themselves, beginning with Dr. Alpha.
Okay. Yeah, Dr. Alpha, please carry on.
Greetings to everyone. I'm Dr. Alpha Patrick. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay. I'm Dr. Alpha Patrick Innocent, a principal lecturer at the Federal Polytechnic Ida, Kogi State, Nigeria. I hold a PhD in political science from the University Utara, Malaysia. I run a group, a community-based organization called the Ome Intellectual Forum, and I'm into a series of campaigns, including environmental sustainability. I'm glad to be in this conversation this afternoon. Greetings once again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Patrick. We're also happy to have you here.
Thank you very much, Dr.
My pleasure.
Dr. Priscilla, can we have you?
Yes, good morning, everybody. It's afternoon in Kenya, must be morning in Nigeria, and probably night everywhere else. It's really nice to be here. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Priscilla Gitonga. I work at the Department of Music and Dance in Kenyatta University. And I'm also an environmentalist activist in my own way using the arts. And I'm really, really happy that young people can come together and do this. So I'm looking forward for great conversations. And let's do this. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Priscilla. We're also happy to have you here. Jonathan, except we have our speakers who are here who did not introduce themselves. If they can do that. Aliyu from Nigeria, are you back on? Okay, Pamela from Tanzania, are you here?
Yes, Chair.
Carry on, please.
Okay. Greetings to everybody. My name's Engineer Pamela Masai.
Yes, I'm back. Hello, can you hear me?
Carry on, Pamela. Carry on, Pamela.
Thank you. My name's Engineer Pamela Masai. I'm currently working as a Member of Parliament at the East African Legislative Assembly, and as well working with some of the organizations dealing with the environmental issues. And I'm also running the campaign in Tanzania called the Tanzania Goes Green, which I initiated it in 2017. I'm also an active member of the SINESA. I know most of you must know the SINESA group, which is the deals also with the issues of environmental sustainability in Africa, as well as trying to support the groups which deals with the creation of awareness on the issues regarding the climate change, environmental biodiversity in different areas in Tanzania. As of now, I beg to pause there, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pamela. We're happy to have you here. Aliyu, you can go on now if you can hear me. Jonathan, your audio is mute. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. On. So I'm saying Ali is on mute. If he can hear us, then maybe he can turn his microphone on.
Yes.
Yeah, and introduce himself.
Can you? Okay, let me do that from here. Yeah, Ali, go on.
Yeah, okay. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right, great. Good morning, everyone from this end. My name is Ali Osman. I'm a legislative aide to an elected honorable member by the National Assembly of Nigeria. I'm also a volunteer. I volunteer with with an NGO that goes by the name of 2 Initiative for Healthy Environment, plus I'm the founder of YHD as Nigeria. I've had a stint in the past as a journalist, and I am into advocacy, especially that promotes the environment. So it's my pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to all of the conversations.
Thank you very much, Aliyu. We're also happy to have you here. Jonathan, I think we can actually begin the conversation proper.
Yes, thank you very much, Peter, for running that. If you can kindly find a steady, the audio is a little bit shaky, so that we can hear him clearly. So from here, I would like us to move straight to the discussions, and Hamdi Hashed from Tunisia will open for us. Talk to us about what's happening in Tunisia.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, everybody. I'm pleased to meet all of you and to be together to discuss Africa issue during this session. Actually, what happened now? As you know, Tunisia have witnessed in 2011, sorry if I am sitting in a restaurant, it's not depend of me, this noise. Since 2011, Tunisia have witnessed a revolution. So we have a revolution in every structure of the state. So even our environmental and climate policy have changed. But if we talking about the change is positive or negative, that we have should have an overview what happened exactly. Before the revolution, we was conducting by dictatorial regime. So everything is going, at least for the people, as normal politics. But after 2011, well, we have now a democratic institution that we can discuss each policy and we can critical even. So what we have now, what we have exactly that we are looking to resolve some our problem, because the revolution 2011, one of the reason was a climate reason. Because some agriculture in Tunisia, in the south especially, have witnessed some period of drought. So no water is no agriculture, no development, no economy. So people starting to be under some pressure. So for these people, when we happened 2010, are aligned directly in the revolution, the side of people who revolt. So directly we have people are victims of climate change. They are want to be conducting the change. So what our government looking now is to avoid the future some problem. As we know, climate change, I have explained in the first part of my discussion when we have introduced myself. The first issue in Tunisia is water crisis, and we have energy crisis also. It's depend of Tunisia not producing. We are sandwiched between Libya, is big oil producer, and Algeria also is a big producer. But in Tunisia, it's not the case. We are not producing a huge quantity, or we are not an important player in the oil production. So we export all our needs from Libya and Algeria. Is not so we have a kind of not stability energetically. We are not stable. So we're looking for export. For that reason, our government have turned into invest in renewable energy. So we have a plan to at least 30% of our electricity should be produced by renewable energy. But the problem here is, as we see, there are some companies are running out from Europe to coming in Tunisia because our law is not perfectly controlled. So they use this link or this lack of control institutional here to come and invest without any control or without any restriction. So what we're looking now is to how to have green investment, but it should be moral investment. We are a good platform. We are just close to Italy. We have separated by Italy 150 kilometers only from Europe. We are very close to Europe, but our politic is not stable. From before 1 month, we have witnessed a big problem in the media that we have make attention that some of our businessmen are exporting Italian trash, Italian waste, and they come into Tunisia to treat it here. And this is not logical at all. Why we do that? Because our constitutional law, our control law is not performant to make pressure about to be in the normal standards. So let's talk about our 4 challenges for Tunisia. I think it's also challenges for Africa too. Water, that's the first issue that we are witnessing water crisis since 50 years at least. In the future, Tunisia will be at 20 country who will be the worst water situation in the world. And now our population is growing up because it's not dependent on Tunisia. Tunisia, as I told you, is close to Europe. So many people from other African countries come to our country to use Tunisia. It's close geographically to Europe, to pass to Europe as immigrant. So now progressively we witnessed on our street a huge number of people who's coming from many other countries to cross the border. These people are looking for solution. We understand that perfectly. But these people also to make pressure about water resources here in Tunisia. This coming, we estimated at least in 5 years, we have 1 million refugee at least is coming to using Tunisia as a bridge to cross to Europe. That's from one part. Other part, several climatic phenomena that's what happened in Tunisia. We have witnessed a drought for 5 consecutive years now, and our economy is still suffering. Many farmers in Tunisia are changing their activity because they can't resist anymore for this changement, and this is not logical. And our government also, they're facing economic crisis that they can't support or subsidize these farmers to resist and to stay practicing their activity. The other issue is actually energetic, as I explained in the previous part of my discussion. So we're looking to turn into clean energy, but it's not with any cost. With the investments here, it should be controlled, but it's not the case, unfortunately. The third situation is sea level rising. Some our coastal line. Tunisia have 2,300 kilometers of coastal line, or at least 8 million persons have live in the coastline of Tunisia. So when the level rising, now we witnessed also some destruction of our touristic infrastructure, because some of our hotels is very luxurious hotels now is not in service due to the fact that the sea level are rising and is damaging this infrastructure that's cost for us a lot and lot economically. The last challenge that we now start talking, because since the revolution we have highlight this point, what's happening exactly, climate refugee. This term is new in the world, but it's not new in our country because we have it since long time ago. We have many of the civilizations who started here in Tunisia, have conducted many infrastructure or many monuments due to the climate change. Now we have witnessed the second version of this climate change, of the climate refugee. Some of the people now, we have at least 0.7 million person who was obliged to leave them economic activity of their lands to move to the big city, or maybe to take the initiative to cross to Europe as a not legal immigrant. So that's some of the point that we can discuss. Actually, we can discuss later together. I think that's all from my part. Maybe if you have a question, or we can continue with other points, we are welcome. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hamdi, for that. We are happy to hear about Tunisia, and one of our questions was going to be about revolution and whether that had an impact insofar as environmental management and protection of natural resources is concerned. But we will come to the questions during the Q&A session, yes, so that at least we can explore some of these issues further. So our next speaker is Benedict Ntale from Uganda. Benedict. Kindly unmute yourself, Benedict.
Hello, can everybody hear me now?
Yes, you can.
Oh, thank you very much. I failed to introduce myself earlier because I was trying to connect and things weren't working properly. My name is Benedict Ntale, and I'm here to represent Phil, who was supposed to be here.
Anakupigia.
Benedict, kindly, we can't hear you.
Then when it's done, we
Hello?
Yes, Benedict. Now you're...
I'm suffering with the connection, but let me be as fast as I can. If you look at the location of Uganda, we lie between two great rift valleys, the eastern and the western Rift Valley, and we are a very, very ecologically sensitive country.
We've lost you once again, Benedict.
Jonathan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Isa.
I think we should let him sort his connectivity issues. Let's quickly allow Namibia to share our own part of this work.
Okay.
Eva, are you with us?
Eva.
Yes, you're here. Okay, so just to take you through, I think Jonathan has already mentioned Namibia is a very arid country. So part of it, when you look at Namibia, we have a very huge space in terms of square meter, but then most of it is inhabitable because it's covered by the desert. So basically what is happening with the climate change and what we see with the trend is that Namibia is becoming more drier. And then that taps into us having water issues. And I know my brother from Tunisia has already mentioned. So for us, that is something that is not new, but we have really been struggling with the water. And especially in the main cities where we reclaim water, we see that every single year we are going into water restrictions. We are not allowed to have gardens because we cannot just satisfy the human demand of water. So stepping into the water scarcity in 2018, we had a phenomenon where it actually didn't rain much. And most of our people, like in many parts of Africa, we are farmers. And then we rely on this for just for living and not even for income. So really affected the climate change affecting the water, the rainfall actually left most of our people without produce for that particular year. And this has led into conflict in certain areas. I know that we, Hamdi talked about migration issues. So we also had actually in the one part of Namibia in the central, east central part, there were actually some conflict with the army people and the locals there because they were trying to take their livestock to actually graze in the government farms. And this actually brought a very huge conflict between the army and then the community. And the other thing is that climate change is affecting also our economy. Namibia export, actually fisheries is one of the top 4 contributors to the GDP of Namibia. And then actually we have seen that over the years, the fish masses in the ocean is declining. And obviously we rely on this for the economical reasons. And then as this is affecting, so it's also Namibia, sorry, is getting into the sphere where also our economy is affected. And this is actually prompting our government to look into alternatives of how we can actually manage the resources. And then if we don't do something about climate change, environmental management, we cannot actually help our economy as well. And in certain areas, we see that because of the economic drive and people wanting to make a living, we have had an issue where the Chinese are actually getting timber from the northeastern part of Namibia. And then with this, because the Environmental Management Act is protecting if you're doing harvesting for commercial purposes, but now you're having locals selling a specific consignment that is under the required harvest amount of timber to be harvested. To be harvested. So what they do is that they aggregate timber from different harvester in the community, and this is actually leading into depleting of the natural forest. And by law, it is allowed because the person is not doing it is not harvesting from one specific space, but getting from different people and without requiring the permit to protect the environment. So yeah, so for me, that is some of the issues. And actually when it comes to climate change, Namibia is also working on to adding value to, let's say, depushing aspect and trying to convert the encroacher bush into fodder and feed for the animals. So that is what we have tried actually during the phenomena that happened in 2018. So yeah, that are actually some of the challenges that are happening in Namibia at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much, Eva, for articulating the Namibian issues. We will, during the Q&A session, get to learn more about even the oil rigging prospects going on, or the plans in Namibia at the moment, and whether that's a political decision or something like that. So thanks so much at the moment. And after Eva, before we come to the questions, we'd like to, I don't know whether Koliwe from Eswatini has joined. Koliwe, and if Koliwe is not here yet, I can see Mioba Bumba from Zambia is very ready. Welcome, Mioba.
Yeah, thank you so much. So Zambia is a landlocked country, and it has it's covered in 44.6 million hectares of forest cover, and 60% of this is 60% of the total land cover for Zambia. And so we have many other environmental challenges. We are into mining, and the challenges have been whether the companies that are doing the mining are fully accountable, held accountable in terms of either it's paying tax or being responsible to the communities in which they operate, whether they are following the regulations in terms of emissions coming from their sites. We've had issues of people who are on the Copper Belt, which is the most active mining province of the country, reporting certain incidences of water pollution in their systems, and also certain, respiratory diseases. On the forests, it's obviously timber logging by the Chinese nationals, aided by the locals, and also non-adherence to timber bans. The national development, the strategic national development plan of the country for 2015 to 2021 focuses mostly on poverty alleviation and employment creation, human development. And the most priority areas in the strategic plan are agriculture, mining, tourism, manufacturing, commerce and trade, information, communication and technology. But there is no chapter in the national development, in the national strategic national development plan for the environment. The environment is only covered as a cross-cutting issue, and environmental concerns in the strategic national development plan, both for 2015 to 2020 and the previous ones, have been poorly integrated, and there are no measurable targets as to or indicators to environmental concerns. This also applies to the national budget. There's very little funding allocated to address environmental issues in the country. So in the near future, probably environmental integration would obviously be a thing, or like trying to be implemented. But the thing is, we do not have adequate institutions to execute these plans, or the capacity or funding to successfully implement estimated programs. So the issues usually are, there's more attention in my country to issues of local politics and other things, and the environmental issues do not just cause much headlines. Yeah, so the country's environmental laws, they are dispersed across about 7 ministries. For example, we have the Zambia Wildlife Act, we have the Forest Act, the Environmental Impact Assessment Regulation, and all these, they do not fall under one ministry. They are spread across ministries, which is making it very difficult to assess how well they are implemented, because each line ministry is focusing on its like everyday business. Since environment and its issues are cross-cutting, they don't really pay attention. So if you go to the Ministry of Tourism, they will address environmental issues in terms of wildlife restocking. It's not really a matter of how much forest cover is being lost. You go to the Ministry of Environment, you go to the Ministry of Mining, it's not the main issue. Their main issue is mining. So they won't really have to deal with environmental issues at that large scale. So when it comes to Zambia, it's policies. They are there, we know them. They're on paper, but they're the institutions to execute and implement these policies. They don't have the capacity, and the funding is very, very low, which makes it very difficult to achieve the targets. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Bumba, for articulating the Zambian issues. And one thing that I know we'd really like to understand is Zambia has vast amounts of natural resources, and we from what you've said, these are on paper, the policies, but we'd like to know the missing ingredient. What is this missing link? Why is there that discrepancy between the policies that we have, the documentations, and the implementation? What are we really missing? Before we come to that, I don't know whether Ben is ready. Uganda. Ben.
Hello.
Yes, Ben.
Hello. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Sorry, I have a very troubled network, but I guess I can be able to concentrate this time and say something pertinent. I'll be very quick. First of all, I believe you all understand the location of this country. It lies in some very sensitive basin, the Nile Basin, and we share a very big lake with you, Jonathan, Kenya, and the rest of the 3 East African countries. Uganda has been one of the most beautiful countries. I mean, I'll quote Winston Churchill, when he first came to Uganda in 1907, he said something very interesting. He said, for magnificency, for variety of form and color, for profusion of brilliant life, bird, insect, reptile, beast, for vast scale, Uganda is truly the power of Africa. I mean, that description was so emotive and passionate. And I think if he came back now, he would swallow his words, because most of the things have changed over time and we've been reckless in the way we've handled affairs of our environment, and many things have gone down the drainage. I'll go straight to policies and efforts government has put in place over time to help keep the environment in shape. I'll also give you some brief history about us. Uganda has been, having political instability for almost the last 58 years, since we got independence in 1962. We've never had peaceful transfer of power, and the current administration has been here for 35 years. We are having elections next year. Already tempers are high, and people seem to be fatigued by the current administration. However, as regards the environment, I'll give you some figures. 16% of Uganda is covered by inland freshwater. Around 12% of land in Uganda is covered by national parks and game reserves. However, we have a very big population. We are around 42 million people. I think we will soon be maybe the most populous country in East Africa. And there is a lot of pressure exerted on the environment, on the game reserves, on the swamps, on the rivers and lakes. This government one time had a department for forestry, and it was not working properly. So back in the early 2000s, they decided to come up with a National Forest Authority, NFA, and it's been charged with handling over 506 forest reserves. However, it does not have a force to enforce. And what has been happening, together with corruption and underhand work, most of these forests are getting depreciated. Again, we have strong business people who connive with government officials, and they're able to bend rules and to degazette some of these forests and go ahead and start other businesses like extensive farms. A case in point here, we have a very big forest in eastern Uganda that covers over 4,000 square hectares. And as we speak now, around 21 square kilometers of it are going because of, some very powerful business person from Kenya. The Rai family, I believe Jonathan has heard of it, played darts with the people here to take part of the forest. And we have a very, very big problem with that. In fact, I'm part of the association that is fighting the move to destroy the forest. We also have another department that is supposed to help government handle affairs of the environment. It's called NEMA, the National Environment Management Authority. However, we have found out that NEMA has become a rubber stamping entity. I mean, whichever environmental social impact assessment that is presented to them is actually accepted. Even when we, the civil society, come out and make all sorts of noise, we are eventually on the losing end. We've lost many cases in court, not because we don't have a case, but because we are too weak to win in court. We also had a very big case involving, we have falls called the Martin Falls. They're actually the most powerful falls on the Nile. They are in a national park, in Martin Falls National Park, which is the largest and oldest national park in Uganda. There was a proposal about 2 years ago to destroy the falls and construct a dam on it. Now, a dam in a national park. we came out strongly to fight it, and were able to somehow stop the process, but we have not won at all. We still hear the interest is on, and it could happen. Another challenge we have is the oil and gas exploitation and eventual food extraction in the national park. I'm talking about Martin Falls National Park. There is another one called Semliki National Park. And we never know. It could eventually get to Queen Elizabeth National Park. Now, all these national parks lie in what we call the Albertine Rift Valley, which is one of the most diverse and ecologically sensitive places in Uganda. And it can affect other parts of the region of Africa if they are mismanaged. We also have an issue of the pipeline. The environmental social impact assessment was endorsed, and we really don't know how it's going to run, how it's going to affect us, because some of this information is not relayed to the public. We have a report that came out recently stating that by around 2030 we will not have any natural forest on private land. That is how bad it is. When it gets to things to do with energy, biomass energy, only around 15% of energy used for cooking here is qualified as clean energy. Otherwise, the rest isn't. And we are having a big problem with that, because the woody biomass that we rely on is depleting every other day. I mean, there's a lot to talk about this, but I think I'll stop here because I already lost my time. And I welcome questions. What I've done is to just butterfly, to pick bits and pieces from my presentation. And I welcome questions after this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Benjamin, for highlighting some of these issues, and some of them are going on in Uganda. I think some of the things that we'll be exploring after this is how we can strengthen institutions like NEMA. Now that you said it has now become a rubber stamping authority, we have forests. You're talking about like the Goma forest being cleared for agricultural activities and so on. The Murchison Falls, some of the ecologically sensitive areas. So before we come to that during the Q&A session, I don't know whether Koliwe from Eswatini has joined. And if she has not, then we can move on to Aliu Osman. Aliu Osman, representing Nigeria. And if Aliu is not on yet, then we can move on to El Shaddai, Ethiopia.
Hello, everyone again. So can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and start with introducing Ethiopia. So Ethiopia is located in East Africa, and it's one of the oldest independent countries in Africa and in the world. Our population as of 2018 is 109.2 million, and we have more than 80 ethnic groups and languages. Our capital is Addis Ababa, and the current metro area population of Addis Ababa as of 2020 is 4.7 million, showing a 4% increase just in a year, and also showing rapid urbanization. And some facts about Ethiopia is Ethiopia has the largest livestock population in Africa, and it also has the lowest point on Earth. With the exception of climate change, to name some of the most environmental issues in the major environmental issues affecting Africa are Ethiopia are soil erosion, land degradation, deforestation, forest degradation, water scarcity, and biodiversity loss, and different types of pollution. So, and also Ethiopia recently faced one of the worst desert locust invasions, along with some other East African nations, which damaged thousands of hectares of farm. And desert locust control also causes water pollution, soil pollution, and is also will cause, if continued to be used, it will cause biodiversity reduction and other environmental damages. And these recent outbreaks of desert locusts can be linked to the anthropogenic climate change, because there were more heavy rains in East Africa and in Ethiopia, causing the recent outbreaks of the desert locust invasions. And when we come to biodiversity loss, Ethiopia is known for having a lot of native animal species, and but they're being threatened because of climate change and different environmental factors. And for example, there are only 500 remaining Ethiopian red wolves in the world, and they're being threatened. And as well as there are also some elephants on the brink of being lost because of the climate change. And another issue is plastic pollution. It's also a very large issue. And unlike some other East African countries which have banned plastic bags, Ethiopia is still lagging in banning plastic bags. And just in the past decade, the usage of plastics have increased by 15% in Ethiopia. And there's currently a campaign to ban plastic bags in Ethiopia for a plastic-free Ethiopia. And I think it's also important to note that Africa has 7 out of 10 countries which are heavily affected by climate change globally. And Ethiopia is also one of them. So these countries are Sierra Leone, South Sudan, Nigeria, Chad, Central African Republic, Eritrea, and Ethiopia. So this shows that, even if African countries are not causing climate change, that we are the victims of climate change. Therefore, we need to work on different environmental problems happening in Africa. So when we come to the policies in Ethiopia, the environment and the government, we can start with looking at the conservation strategy of Ethiopia, also known as the CSE. It was launched in 1989, and as its name suggests, it is to conserve natural resources in Ethiopia and protect the environment. So the CSE was one of the driving forces that led for the environment, several references to the environment to be included in the 1995 Constitution of the government. And for example, in the Constitution, Article 44 guarantees that the right to live in clean and healthy environment. And then there's another article, Article 92, which requires that the design and implementation of programs and projects of development shall not damage or destroy the environment. And although this is good that the Constitution shows major commitment to environmental issues, it concentrates more on the obligations of citizens to conserve the environment and natural resources, and not how we have the right to use these resources in a sustainable manner, or how we can relating to climate change. So, and then since February 2011, there was an initiative called the Climate Resilient Green Economy Initiative under the leadership of the Prime Minister Office during that regime, and the Environmental Protection Agency Authority and the Ethiopian Development Research Institute. And this is to build a green economy and there were different objectives for this initiative, which was to foster economic development and growth, and to ensure abatement of and avoidance of future greenhouse gas emissions, and to improve resilience of climate change. So this initiative also wanted to recognize the policies that has close links between the economy, social, environmental problems, and how we can benefit from them in the long run. So according to the African Development Bank, the Ethiopian government's existing policy and institutional framework for the environment and natural resources is adequate and sound. And this shows that the Ethiopian government is making constant efforts to mainstream environmental issues and development processes. There is a plan for Ethiopia to reach a middle country status by 2025. And this plan was on the second growth and transformation plan of Ethiopia. And although this may result in improvements for some environmental problems, this increases pressure on resources and such as like water and energy, and will increase a lot of emissions of some pollutants, typically those related to transportation, industry, and traffic. So there is a plan to have a lot of industrial parks in Ethiopia, and this is likely to cause a lot of environmental damage and greenhouse emissions, which is very bad for Ethiopia and also just the world, because there will be a lot of emissions. For example, the industrial sector is projected to amount for highest increased emissions, rising from 4 metric ton of carbon dioxide in 2010 to 71 metric carbon dioxide by 2030. And this doesn't conflicts with the climate resilient green economy initiative, because there is pressure from the government to build more industrial parks. But then there's also this other initiative to have a green economy with sustainable industry. And when we come to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, 2 of the Sustainable Development Goals are the use of renewable energy and climate change. And for use of renewable energy, Ethiopia is building dams and hydroelectric power plants and wind power plants to use more like renewable energy source. One of them is the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which is one of the biggest hydro power electric plants in East Africa. And there's also, for climate change, there is also the Ethiopian Civil Society Network on Climate Change and the Climate Resilient Green Economy Initiative, which goes along with the Sustainable Development Goal of fighting climate change. There have been gaps between laws and policies on implementation. For example, we can look at the plastic ban proclamation for, I think it was called Proclamation 513, which banned the use, manufacturing, and selling of plastic bags, which are under the thickness of 0.03 millimeters. And although this was a law, it was not implemented at all in Ethiopia, and it was made in 2007, about 13 years ago, but it was never implemented, and we still see plastic bags of that thickness and being used all over Ethiopia. And there's other political leaders or the government have made poor decisions on the environment and livelihoods. For example, in the Afar region of Ethiopia, there was an expansion for sugarcane and cotton plantations by the government. Even though the Afar people were pastoralists, they were not consulted or compensated when the land was taken for this plantation. And the expansion process for this plantation caused a lot of environmental degradation. It changed the seasonal runoff patterns for Awash River and really affected the indigenous people living there. And there's another instance as well where there was conflict in the western region of Ethiopia, in the Gambela region, where there were a lot of land grabs going on. So lands were being given to foreign investors in western Ethiopia. And there's a huge national park in Gambela region, the western region, with a lot of wild animal species and vegetations. But because of the pressure from the federal forces and foreign investors, it will be subjected to change in the future. And the land grabs have caused a lot of conflict with the indigenous people there. The Aimak people who are indigenous to the place were forced to leave their land, and huge areas of the lands were given to bigger companies, and causing widespread evictions, food insecurity, and conflicts amongst the indigenous people living there. there's a quote that says, in Gambela, foreign and domestic investors have forced indigenous people out of their ancestral lands, which threatens their food security and ability to protect their national environment and ecological systems of wetlands and forests. Even though there were poor decisions made by political leaders, there has also been some policies or practices that have yielded great benefits to the country. For example, there is the new Green Legacy Initiative, which started last year in 2019 by the current Prime Minister, to become a green society by planting different types of eco-friendly plants in Ethiopia. And the plan is to have 20 billion seedlings planted by 2024. And the UN, according to the UN, the Green Legacy Initiative has hugely contributed to Ethiopia's conservation efforts and environmental efforts. And there's another initiative called Menged Leso, which translates to Streets for the People. And it aims to tackle some of the consequences of rapid urbanization in Ethiopia by focusing on allowing people to use the streets and focusing on sustainable transportation. And it was inspired by Colombia's open street movement as well, called Ciclovia. So these are some of the initiatives that other African countries can also take part in and can learn from. Yeah, those are one of the, I guess, the main environmental problems in Ethiopia. Thank you for giving me this chance to talk, to represent Ethiopia.
Thank you very much, El Shaddai. That was eloquent, highlighting the Ethiopian issues all the way from the top. And you've talked about the land grabs. Some of the questions I know we'll go into after this is that, Ethiopia has one of the most unique constitutions, I think, in the world, based on the ethnicities or ethnic groups. So Ethiopia is more of an ethnic federalism. And I don't know whether, given that now the constitution says the land belongs to the states and something, are there weaknesses in terms of consultations, and why do we have the interference with the indigenous groups and so on and so forth, and whether this has any bearing on environmental degradation in Ethiopia. So during Q&A sessions, those are some of the areas we'll get to explore. But before we get to that, is Koliwe in yet? Sinzi from Eswatini? No. If not, then I'd like to request Ikal Angele, representing Kenya.
Hi, Jonathan. If at any point it gets windy, please let me know. I will look for somewhere to hide. Yes. Thanks, colleagues. It was really great listening to all of you and your inputs. I will try to do justice. It's really hard to claim, the same way we claim Africa is not a country, it's a bit hard to claim knowledge of every part of the country. So I will try as much as possible to do some justice to this. Sorry. So I'll sort of just give a sense of, one of the things when we talk about environment and politics, we must agree that the push for environmental governance is a political process. It is a social and political process, and you cannot, walk away from it. That the interests around whether a project is set up or not, whether an environmental policy is implemented or not, is a political process. And the interests of politicians and the corporates, capitalism is really right in front of us. Globalization came with its good and bad. So in Kenya, we've seen a big push for energy production, like the many parts of the continent. We've seen the international financial institutions pushing for, the narrative that Africa is a dark continent and we have to meet our SDG 7. And so we should develop all this mega energy projects, from fossil fuels to hydro dams to wind energy, and sometimes celebrated the green energy. But we've also seen the other side of it. So in Kenya, we've seen, initially my work really began in questioning the Gibe 3 dam that's at the border of Kenya and Ethiopia. While in Ethiopia, its impacts are downstream in Kenya. So you see this cut across the country with the Crocodile Joe's Dam, with various pushes for development of large hydro dams. Yet we have seen what hydropower has done, and there's literature that indicates the greenhouse gas emissions that are brought from large mega dams. And yet, we see it as renewable and it's not fossil fuel. So you're seeing that aspect within the country. With it, we've seen the push for geothermal, again, green energy. But we've also seen the impacts that geothermal has done, not only, and because I said environment governance is a political process, it's not about climate change and greenhouse gas emissions, but also the impacts on humans. Because we are not saving the world for romanticization's sake, but it's really for the people. And so we've seen the impacts of geothermal on people, on land, on livelihoods, on water. And right now, as I am speaking, we are seeing this phenomenon where the Rift Valley lakes are flooding. We do not know why. It's either tectonic, there is questions around the urbanization, geothermal. There's a lot of questions around it, but we definitely can link it to a change in land use, a change in activities, man-made pressure around the areas where the Rift Valley lakes are. And then you see again, the largest wind farm in Africa, and everybody celebrates around it. But then there's also, and why I'm excited about this conversation of environment and politics is while we are pushing for all this renewable energies, but we don't question that a lot of the minerals that are used to develop the renewable energies are still from the continent. So it is not only about what the end product is. We've not looked at the beginning, and cobalt, aluminium, where it's mined from, how it is mined, the extractivism that comes within. So while everybody will say, oh, we're not polluting the air, but we didn't look at where did the minerals come from and what damage did it cause to be able to extract the minerals that are needed to develop that wind, the wind turbines. And so it's very critical, so we are looking at that. So as everybody is celebrating the largest wind farm, it is also the big question. So what happened before that? Before the turbine became a turbine, what was the mineral around it? But we've also seen the coal push for the coal plant in Lamu and the impacts around it, but also the victories around the stoppage of it by the courts of Kenya for lack of public participation. Whether initially, whether the national government is going to stop it is another question. However, the beauty is that the risks related to supporting the coal plant have exacerbated, and the likes of the Chinese, because of again, financially, they're now walking away from high risk projects like that one. So we can celebrate a victory, and it's again a victory that comes out of grassroots mobilization of organizations like Save Lamu and the Decolonize, who worked so hard, and also Natural Justice and all other teams that come together to go to court to then question the legal processes that have allowed for the permit to be given and later on withdrawn by the court system. We're seeing an increase in a reduction in agricultural production in terms of produce, what's coming out of it, the output. And it is a mixture of seed, where's the seed coming from, the control of the seed, the aspects where that control of seed further affects farmers and the way they produce their food. And this has an impact on fertilizer, on water, on all other things. So you can see that that's happening, and it's the conversations and the nexus between water, land, soil, and food production, especially in a continent where we are constantly struggling with food production. I'm in an area where we are food insecure. But with all that, there's a push for mega infrastructure, whether it is the SGR, the standard gauge railway, whether it is the oil pipeline, whether it is Lapsat, the Lamu Port, South Sudan, Ethiopian transport corridor. And it's this huge, massive infrastructure, the expressway, which not only take up land, because land then stops becoming an issue of, a means of production, but a concept of modern politics in terms of how people who then negotiate what land is taken, what is compensated. And we're seeing with the laws that the state is starting to control land, where they then, in areas where it is community land, there is the push for legalization. Now we have Community Land Act and the land reform that have come with it. However, even while we say that the land belongs to the people, you see a state that is later, following up with a follow-up legislation that zero rates the value of the land. So compensation to communities cannot happen. And again, with all this, a few months ago, you may have seen in the media where the US FTA with Kenya, where the US government is coming up with free trade agreements with the Kenyan government. And around these things, you see a possible interest of expanding its petroleum industry so that, but in the end, the plastics dumping then happens within the continent. Kenya becomes one of the areas open because of that agreement between Kenya and the USA. So it's a myriad of things that you see a state that is trying to control, while one hand coming up with nice documents like the Climate Change Act, which in my opinion is a very toothless law. It was a nice thing to take to Paris and say, Kenya is the first African country with this, but so what after that? We do not even demand for climate impact assessments. We do not know how to undertake the NEMA, the National Environmental Management Authority does not know how to undertake a climate impact assessment. Half of our assessments of air pollution, etc., are done out of the country, and when not done out of the country, are controlled by a company that is owned by a politician. And it's all this, kind of things. Of course, now everybody talks about conservation in Kenya, but then the reality is we're seeing a push for, green grabbing, where under the guise of conservation, you're seeing land being taken over by people. If you look at all this red credits, you look at the wildlife works, they're taking up lands that belong to communities and create a financial system around it that in the end, if you look at the conflicts that are happening between conservation and communities, it really is around the control and the grab of resources, of territories, lands, and resources that belong to communities. So even as much as everyone talks about Kenya and all this and conservation and a bit of it in South Africa, but we've seen in places like Swaziland, like in Kenya, where communities are now standing up and saying, whose resources do this belong to? So a reality around romanticization of climate change, conservation, but then it's in areas where there's food insecurity, there's poverty, there's land loss by communities. They cannot be in any way be able to develop further, and a lot of this is really under the state, the use of the state to consolidate, expand, and express power, where they control and manage in the control and management of community resources. And communities' environment. So in a nutshell, that is it. We can say we have laws, but when you have a state that breaks and does not adhere to the constitution or to the ruling of the courts, then you have, at that point, you have to then decide between diplomacy and the next step forward. So in a nutshell, that's what I could say. I know Jonathan said about the largest desert lake in Kenya. Yes, here in Turkana, we have the largest desert lake, but it is under pressure because of three, again, a lot of it is transboundary, 3 dams, the Gibe 3 dam, the Khoiso dam, and the Gibe 5 dam in Ethiopia, and the plantation of sugarcane and cotton, whose impact will definitely affect the Lake Turkana because of the high use of fertilizer, which is, high nitrates. The dumping of fertilizer in the region, in the lake, will definitely affect Lake Turkana, but also what then happens with 3 huge dams that are being done and that are being developed there, all under the guise of renewable energy. If then it is renewable, how is it that it's not sustainable for the people downstream? Other questions we keep asking. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ikal, for actually you've done justice to the topic, just like you said you tried. And you've raised thought-provoking, issues as well. And maybe some of the issues that you can also help us look into. You talked about the Gibe dams and so on, and some of the realities. We are talking about renewable energy. In Kenya, we also have potential, but we still go ahead to explore non-renewable or not so environmentally friendly sources like coal. And also, I know, but you'll correct me if I'm wrong, that you met the former Prime Minister of Kenya, and at some point, I think he mentioned to you, he told you not to fight government. And that actually leads me to questions like, when we talk about resources, like protecting Lake Turkana, and we have the dam construction going on, and the politicians and some of the political leaders we have keep pushing for this to go on, in whose interest are they doing this? Is it for the people? And if it is, I mean, if these are threatening the people and the livelihoods and, the indigenous communities, why are they still pursuing this? Like, what's the missing link or ingredient here? So we'll come back to that, but thanks, Ikal, for this. Since Koliwe has not joined yet, I'd like us to go straight to Pamela Masai from Tanzania. Pamela, kindly, if you're in.
Yes, Jonathan. Good afternoon once again. I'll just start by saying that I'm sure almost all of you know what Tanzania is, and probably most of you have been here in Tanzania. Tanzania is among the African countries with a vast natural resources, including vegetation, water, minerals, and many, many other things which are really nice here. Also, this country is very big, with a massive land, with a big population of almost 55 million plus. With this background, this country is found itself into a various actions which affects the country positively and negative. As you all know that having this big population, that means different activities must take place, people must survive, people must undergo different activities so that they can end their lives, they can end their economy and so forth. Also, you all understand that there are different activities, especially from the government side, which aim to conduct, to make sure that the development is happening. Especially, for example, in Tanzania, we are currently having different projects like the SGR construction, mineral and coal extraction activities in different areas. We have lakes which people are undergoing the fishing activities. Also from the rural areas, you know that the agricultural activities and livestock activities are taking place there. With all these activities have led the Tanzania into some problems, especially on the climate change and the environmental issues, which brought Tanzania into this risk of having higher temperatures, sometimes more floods in different areas, some areas getting droughts, and also sometimes we get the rise in the sea level, which sometimes threatens some of the agricultural production and the livelihood of for these people who are living around those areas. With all these things which I've mentioned, there are some initiatives which has taken place from the government side as well as other stakeholders, especially the environmental and climate change activists who works tirelessly to make sure that all this comes, at least they are reduced. But as you all know that this is not a Tanzania problem, it's a world problem. So it's just, for me, I can say it's just that people are trying to touch the base, but they've not yet reached the point that the issues can be addressed and everyone is aware of what is really happening. For example, you could see there were the overflooding of the Lake Victoria few months ago, and really looking at it, you could see that there is a lack of emergency preparedness along those areas, and that's why maybe those things happen, as well as the lack of awareness on what to do and what's supposed to be, what's supposed to take place, so that we avoid those situations. Currently, the Tanzania government, using via its Office of Vice President, which is responsible for the environmental and the climate change issues, which is responsible for development of policy and other coordinations, which develops the environmental programs and oversees the projects which cut across all these areas, tried to establish some different dockets in the ministry to make sure that at least the civil society is involved, especially to make sure that the environmental activities, the research, the policy making, they are all involved, and make sure that at least the people from the grassroots get to know what is really happening. But looking at the way things are going, because the government, you know, they always implement the policy. And having the policy on board, you have the policy, but you know, sometimes policy might be on the papers. Policy, implementing the policy, having the policy or laws or regulations is one, but the implementation is another thing. So here we have seen a number of policies which are on the papers, and coming to the implementation, still the community is not really conversant to what the government wants it to be done. But at least for last year, 2019, end of May, the government established the total plastic ban, and which was really successful. And as of now, I can tell you there is no more use of plastic materials in Tanzania. So at least I can say that's one of the areas where it was successfully implemented, and at least people understood why are we not supposed to use the plastic material, especially the plastic bags, because you know the impact of it. And also, another thing which I saw it is a challenge, although we have these laws and regulations, still they are conflicting one another, because there are different government departments which sometimes they are responsible for dealing with the issues regarding the climate change. But now, since this thing is not given to specific docket, now you see some of the department having a feeling that there is an undermining of their effectiveness, and at the end of the day, the laws are not really in the implementation. Because you know that this legislation aimed at regulating the use and the management of these natural resources and other resources, which evolves along sectoral lines, especially on the governing environment. And also, it was supposed also to cover the issues regarding the media.
Hello, Pamela, kindly unmute yourself.
Yes, Jonathan?
Yeah, you are now back on, yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Yeah, what I was trying to say is, yeah, we have these different initiatives which is being taken by the government as well as the activists. And we have seen the government has initiated some of them, and we have the laws and regulations, but still having the laws in place does not mean that we are in the implementation. So I see there is a gap here, especially on the issues of awareness, and as well as I've mentioned about the issue of having this gap of having the conflicting laws, especially when you talk about the climate change and the environment change and environmental activities. They are cross-cutting activities, which goes into different sectors. Now, when you go to other sectors, especially the agricultural sector, mining sector, and many other sectors, energy, you'll see now they are really conflicting. And at the end of the day, we fail to implement what is aimed, especially for the climate change and the environmental issues. Another thing which I saw it is a serious problem here, it is the issues of having the indigenous beliefs, that when you have the politicians who are really the implementers or they are the lawmakers, and now they have this, they have the conflict of interest between themselves and the voters, or we can say the community. Now you see they fail sometimes to make decision, or they fail to educate or to help their community, the people who are around there, to make sure that whatever is bringing the impact, especially the environmental impact or the climate change issues, it becomes, for them, it becomes really a serious problem. And now you can agree with me that most of the areas where we are really getting these impacts is the areas where the politicians, the lawmakers have failed to address the issue to the community, because they want either, you know, that they want the votes, so they will never tell the groups, for example, especially the indigenous groups, that you are not supposed to conduct deforestation. You're not supposed to cut the wood from the forests. You're not supposed to keep your livestock along the forest or across the bushes. They'll just keep quiet, or they'll try to compromise with them so that they get the votes. So as of now, what I can say, the big problem which I'm seeing from this side is the two which I've mentioned. And I think we really need also to capacitate our own community to try to bring the education on environmental issues and climate change from the grassroots. Maybe we try to bring it from the education system, so that this young generation understand what is the reason, why do we talk about climate change, why do we need the environmental issues to be addressed, why do we need to make sure that all these things goes together with the support of all these other sectors which aims to give us to bring the development to the country. By just saying this, Mr. Chair, I beg to submit.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pamela, for the insights from Tanzania. I think now the other bit you can help us with to understand better. And before I go into that, Pamela actually allowed me to tell everyone that the reason why she's not on video is because a few days before this virtual conference, she was blessed with twins. So currently she's still under observation, but we are honored, Pamela, that despite your situation at the moment, you still made it and articulated issues so well. Thanks, and be blessed for that. So also as an East Africa, as a member of the East, yes, thank you. As a member of the East African Legislative Assembly, maybe you can also share with us what the Assembly is doing insofar as addressing environmental issues, especially the transboundary resources are concerned. And maybe there are a few lessons we can learn from that. And also the other bit is, correct me if I'm wrong, but the information we are getting out here, is that the current Tanzanian regime is not so good at taking criticisms. I don't know. I don't know whether that actually is friendly to the environmentalists trying to push for reforms in Tanzania. If it is true, Pamela, you can tell us it is. If it is not true, then also, yeah. So thanks so much. Let's go to Aliyu. I can see Aliyu is on from Nigeria. Yes.
Hello. Am I on?
Yes, you're on now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I was saying that our situation here is no different from much of the things that have been said. It's serious issues with the environment, particularly because most of you know that Nigeria is an oil-rich country, and so activities of oil exploration and exploitation going on, particularly the Niger Delta area, has created health problems. We've seen a lot of conflict between policymaking, multinational and community involved. And then when you flip it the other side, to northern part of the country, you find environmental problems, and effects of climate change becoming more real, more realist at that point, and all of that. In certain areas, in the northwest of the country, we have seen serious issues of banditry and all of that, security problems really that are also resource related or activity environment. Deep into other economic issues would be like in agriculture and in cattle rearing and all of that. There's conflict between cattle herders and farmers. And so this really makes it a big bowl of environmental challenges that we are having to deal with in the country. And the one that needs more, with what everybody really knows about would have to be, the Niger Delta situation, where oil exploration has overwhelmed communities, environmental pollutions, and gas flaring, all of that creating a huge environmental problem for the people and for the country as is, because when you look at it really, activity, Shell in particular is in several litigations, involving concerning its activities in Niger. And so when you look at all of it, communities in the Niger Delta, for instance, they can't do farm because they have been polluted, they can't fish. So obviously biodiversity also has been, they have been rendered more or less economically useless. They can't do anything. So they depend on government policies them out. And for like 10 years, talking about cleanup of the Niger Ogoni community in particular. And we don't see anything to fruition, all of that, even though, for instance, the former president, President Goodluck Jonathan, who himself from the Niger Delta region could not get anything much done until about 4 years ago, when the present administration, that in 2000, committed to the cleanup of the Ogoni region, of Ogoni land. And even that up to date, nothing much has been achieved. So there's the conflict really when you look at policy making, policy issues, priorities, or what the government prioritizes really, vis-a-vis evidence that is on ground. Then, secondly, you also look at how much all of that creating tension and problem. There's conflict. I think up till about 2010, the entire Niger Delta region was an area in conflict where militants were blowing up the pipes, oil pipes, and adding to the pollution that was going on. And the government sat on the table with them and offered amnesty to them, and it's a well-known program of the government at the time, and just so the conflict would end. So it's been years since that amnesty program, and I can tell you that a lot of the problem, the militants, as it were, then agitated for is still on ground, because more people cannot fish, and then when people, the biodiversity too affected, and the is for so I love this conflict here. Hello?
Go on, we can hear you. I think, Jonathan, I think we lost him.
Oh, sorry for that. I think once he's back, we can let him know that we lost him at some point. So yes, that's Aliu representing Nigeria. I don't know whether it would be wise, Isa, to help expound on the issues Aliu was trying to articulate.
Well, very well then. I think that just like most speakers. Okay, Aliu is back. Aliu is back. Aliu, carry on. Aliu, we can hear you. You should carry on if you can hear us. Yes. Okay, Jonathan?
Yes.
Yeah, let me just add a few. Yes, we can hear you, Aliu. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Please carry on.
All right. And so I was saying that this whole region around that time was militarized and it's in conflict. Now, what the government did was to offer amnesty to the militants, rehabilitating them and reintegrating them in society. But when it came to the environment, really working to really deliver part of the things that got them agitated and even to take to arms, nothing had been done. So no cleanup of the environment at hand, the people there, the communities cannot go back, or fishing, or all of those can do. Oil exploration companies are still there, we are still flaring gas, polluting the environment. Oil bunkering is still happening in all of those places. So certain people go there, post the oil pipelines and scoop for themselves and sell on the black. In certain instances, they have set up refineries. They scoop this oil and then refine those places, then send into the markets. These have not really helped in environmental and getting to people to really maximize have quality of life, or even benefit from the resource that their community have been blessed with. And when you just cross a little bit and leave the oil bank, cross over to the northern part, like I was mentioning, that the Lake Chad areas, the Lake Chad itself has been shrinking. The figures are around that back in the 60s and the 70s, this was an area that was 25,000 square kilometer large. By 2014, statistics were showing that it's creating a lot of and people economic activities that depend on the Lake Chad. And as you know, that area too is in conflict. The Boko Haram is very dominant around that area because of the opportunities that is offered, the economic opportunity that is offers them, to continue to carry out with their, nefarious activities against the Nigerian state and other neighboring areas. So that added to the desertification. Obviously, when we speak about the Lake Chad, we're also talking about desertification, all of that. People have lost homes, trees, and all of that. This is the area you can say, maybe when they see making, for instance, the Nigerian government, you can be seen to be doing better in the Delta areas. For instance, in the Ministry of Environment, an office that was created, climate change office, and the government also tapping into it, green initiative, supposed to fight all of the deal that is coming. But that's with, putting works in place where the change has been with some work to deal with that was supposed to be funded from the fund of the fund office is directly under the presidency of Nigeria. And so 10% of the resources available to the ecological fund is supposed to be made available.
We've lost you there once again.
Jonathan?
Yes, Isa.
I think Ali was already rounding up his talk.
Okay.
So we can actually get him back during the Q&A session. If we have questions directed at the issues concerning this in Nigeria, you should be able to do justice to that. I'm also here anyway, so we're covered.
Okay. Thank you very much, Isa. When Leo comes back, I think we can inform him. And Koliwe has issues with logging in. I don't know whether she'll find us along the way, but we can go ahead with the Q&A session. And I'd like us to go step by step. The general questions, questions that we'll ask generally, and then the speakers will go around answering, whether there are those that are specific to various countries. So I'd like us to start with the questions specific to countries from which the various speakers are from. And I'd like to begin with our very first speaker, Hamdi. I don't know whether Hamdi is still on. So Hamdi somewhere. Hamdi Hached. And if she is not on, then let's go straight to Eva. Eva, kindly.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh yes, Eva. So you spoke about the Namibian issues, spoke so well, and some of the issues actually coming up, because now we have the common issues across. I've seen also from chats here, a number of us are acknowledging the fact that it seems our issues are shared. Now, recently, there is news that there are plans. There is this company called Recon Africa. Eva, you must be familiar with that.
Yes.
Planning the oil rigging in Namibia, and this is touching on some sensitive areas like the Okavango and so on. What's going on, and is this like sanctioned by the government, and how can we address some of these direct assault to the environment and sensitive conservation areas?
Okay, thank you, Jonathan, for the question. I think it's undeniable that sort of like case has made sort of like a regional news, and it has been going on around for quite some time. But we had actually a similar issue of a project that is currently in court right now. I think it have escalated to the Supreme Court at the moment. But the issue is that there are certain projects. Normally, projects after they are approved by a respective department or ministerial department, they are then forwarded to the Department of Environmental Affairs, where a thorough assessment, or based on the scoping, that is done or is projected by the ministry that should be done on that specific project. So what actually I would say, this is a political project. And unfortunately, those ones I first decided in Parliament before they are decided by the normal channel, which is the ministerial, and then it goes to environmental affairs. Then it goes through an environmental assessment for approval. So what normally happen with such project is that government debates on it, and then with that, then they bring the ministers from the respective ministries, so including the ones of environment, and then they decide. But these guys are politically driven and not necessarily environmentally concerned. So that is the case that happened here, and many people are not aware So which is also likely that the assessment was not done properly in general, because the normal process is that a project is then advertised for public, that the public is made aware that there is a such project coming up, and then interested and affected parties are engaged throughout the process. And particularly that this is a big project, then it is going to be advertised in different platforms throughout the country, and people who are interested, not necessarily just the community within that area. So the issue with the Kavango Delta, so this project is between Namibia and Botswana with the proponent. So on the Namibian side, it's already approved for, or it's already cleared to be actually to allow the exploration activities to go on. But when you look into the area, this area is also politically disadvantaged. So the northeastern part of Namibia is, it's part of the Caprivi region that have always wanted to be independent. Now the issue is that government has trying with its development that they sort of like cut off or disadvantage the area so that there's not so much development going on, and they don't have interest in the community because they wanted to be independent of the entire country. So this influence also on the kind of decisions that they made on that specific area. But just to cover some of the environmental issues that are foreseen when it comes to this specific project is that the Kavango Delta area is affecting about 200,000 people who are living here. And when you look at some of the key activities that are outlined in the report is that there is going to be a lot of construction work, a lot of many development fracking activities that are going to take, that are going to affect actually some people to be displaced from their homes. And then also some animals being relocated, specifically the elephant. That area is more prone to elephant. And this engagement is going to disturb the environment and detracting the corridor movement of the elephant. And also when you look at the Kavango area, there's huge amount of water and they receive good rain. It's actually the greener part of Namibia as well. So activities as they go on, and then there is some incidences of oil spillage should they happen, which is also something that is likely to sort of like happen as a key accident, is that it will pollute the water environment and affecting the aquatic, not aquatic, but the water, the water reservoirs and so forth. And also oil is not so good for exposure as we know it. So it's also going to bring a lot of human health defects and stuff like that. So, and the community is not aware that there is a project like that going on after it actually just happened that it was written in paper. That's how it's coming up. So, so people are actually going on at the moment trying to oppose the decision, though already done, but they are opposing the decision and lobbying in court so that the permit will be revoked. So that is at the stage where the project is right now. Jonathan, I'm not sure if I have answered your question.
Yes,
your question or
yes, you have touched on the like sad issue. I think one of the things now we need to really focus on at the moment is how we can, as you're saying, not so many people are aware of it, but it's going on, and it's going to affect more than just the environment. I'm sure the indigenous communities are there, and the question I asked initially, something I raised earlier on, is why, the government that is supposed to, look after us is sanctioning such, destructive activities. But as we go into that, as we explore that, there's someone among us here, the president of the International Zoo Educators Association, that is Dr. Judy. I think she mentioned in the chat that the association has actually helped us. I'm actually a proud member. And in terms of effective communication as well, I think one of the issues we are looking at is how we can communicate some of these issues so that, you know, we can mobilize people to participate and then make the stakeholders hear us. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Judy because she wants to leave. Dr. Judy, kindly, if you can share with us, say something about communication and how we can go about this, we'd really be grateful.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, Eva, and it's lovely to meet all of you again and to meet so many new friends that are all passionate about conservation in Africa. This has been a really inspiring session because everyone here cares very deeply about the people of Africa and the conservation of Africa, and we're doing it for people. That's actually what it is. Helping the environment is really about helping people. I think that if I look at the range of discussions that we've had, one of the many common thread that's come through is the importance of awareness, and Jonathan's just mentioned that now, and it's building that awareness of the importance of the environment for all of us. And I think that we've focused a lot through our communication on working with the general public, and I think that people that have been on our training before know what I think about the general public. It's a really difficult group to target, but it is a target audience. And we've done a lot of work working with younger people, so working with future generations, which is also absolutely critical. I think that where we can really start building our skills is working with policymakers and understanding how to communicate what's important to the people who are making the decisions. And that's perhaps an area that we can explore and work together a little bit more effectively on in the future, because future generations, the youth, absolutely critical audience, the various communities that are impacted by the decisions that are being made are another critical audience, and then policymakers. How do we communicate effectively with the people that are making the big decisions? How do we translate our science, how do we translate our conservation into a way that they can understand? It's work that we've done a little bit with our marine protected areas. What do the policymakers care about? They care about people, they care about votes, and they care about money. How do we translate our communication into something that touches those three areas? And how do we use that more effectively? So that's just a very quick comment, but maybe it's something that we can share and explore a little bit further down the line. But thank you very much and well done to the organizers of this session. It's great to be a part of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Judy, for highlighting that. I think that's one area that we need to, strengthen as environmentalists. Communication is key. Thanks for sharing your perspective, Dr. Judy. And after that, I'd like to go to, I don't know whether Boomba is still here with us. Trying to check. Boomba, Zambia?
Yeah, Zambia is here.
Yes, thank you very much, Zambia. So Boomba, I think you mentioned somewhere that I think your work covers as part of SADC, you go beyond Zambia. So are there any challenges insofar as transboundary resources are concerned? Looking at Zambia, Botswana, whoever is here, Namibia. Yes, and
yes.
Yeah,
and how are these being addressed?
Okay, so in transboundary conservation, what actually causes the collaboration was the challenges that individual countries were facing in the areas where they have common resources. For example, in Namibia, the Caprivi region has the Bwabwata National Park. And in Zambia, in that same region, which is the Western Province, has the Siomangwezi National Park, and in Angola, we have the Lengwe Edwana National Park. So in my own understanding, I think before our colonial masters came to divide the countries, the entire region was a wildlife zone or natural resources zone. And after the division of the countries, now we ended up having each country having a different name for this national park and this one and this, but in the real sense, it's just one zone for ecological landscapes. So when we look at how we apply the laws, for example, wildlife is a beyond border resource. So we have elephants that migrate from Botswana through Zimbabwe to Namibia and Zambia, and eventually they are in Angola. So if the wildlife policies in Zambia are bad, for example, it means that, let's say Namibia has good wildlife policies and they are conserving and it's working out there for that country and for the communities. These elephants will be in Namibia and the people have learned how to interact with them. They are not poaching them. They are not threatening them. So these elephants cross over to Zambia eventually according to seasons and times. And when they come to Zambia, they find that the laws are not that much. The communities are not much adhering to coexistence, and they threaten these elephants and they kill them. It means the conservation efforts of Namibia are in vain, because when the elephant cross over, in Zambia, we kill them. On the other side, they are trying to conserve. So we decided that, okay, why don't we do transboundary management of resources with the communities? So we have created platforms where we have these communities sharing best practices and trying to learn how it is done in the other countries so that we have some kind of uniform. But regardless of that, we've had policy issues whereby, for example, in Namibia, there is the constitution allows for compensation to wildlife damages. If an elephant eats in my field, the government or probably the conservancy will have to pay. But on the Zambian side, the law does not provide for compensation. So you find that the communities on the Zambian side, they are frustrated trying to learn from the Namibian side. So most of the challenges that we've had in transboundary conservation have been different policies, due to different regulations in different countries. That's about transboundary conservation. When it comes to defeat globally, imagine all the countries in the world. Zambia is number 5, and in Africa, it's taking the first position in deforestation. And we are losing about between 250 to 3,000 hectares of forest cover per year. So this is charcoal burning. This is the Chinese are doing the timber logging, aided by the locals, of course. And it's a challenge. The policies are there, but there is corruption aiding this. We find that there is timber exploitation during timber ban, and laws are not implemented very well because sometimes these guys are connected to the big guys. And if you raise the issue, sometimes community members end up being arrested for advocating for such things. And then we have the issue of dry boreholes in Lusaka, where everyone now wants, the water and sanitation company, which is an arm of government, is not really providing effective services. So people want to have control over their water. Everyone, these people who are doing fine, they're drilling boreholes in their pieces of land. And you find that in a space of a small area, we have maybe 10 boreholes, which is putting pressure on the underground water resources. So some boreholes are dry. They're not even producing water anymore. And because we have tempered with the sensitive ecological zones of our city, which is Lusaka, people have started buying plots on the forest reserves and they are cutting these sensitive areas, and we don't have enough underground water. So the government is trying through the Ministry of Water Resources and Development. They have last year they initiated the 3 statutory instruments which are aimed at regulating borehole drilling in Lusaka. We also have issues of endangered species, the elephants, of course, and the rhinos. We used to have millions, thousands of rhino population in Zambia in the 1970s, but now we only have about 9, the entire country, only 9. So it's a challenge. Wildlife crime still exists. Then when it comes to trying to know, like, put back the forest, the government has initiated a plan or an initiative called Plant 1 Million Trees by 2022. So the NGOs, schools, and everybody else is on board trying to plant trees and trying to restore these forests. The National Investment Plan to reduce deforestation also is in place, but mostly, like the first question that you asked, we have good policies. They are there on paper, but why are they not being implemented? It's because we're talking about politics, and this is Africa. Hey, politics in Africa is something else. People that come on board, people that win the elections, they're just people. They don't have the heart for conservation. So, and if the president likes me and I put a lot of voters, he'll promote me, I'll become the minister. And maybe I'm just a businessman and they'll put me in charge of the environment. I don't have passion, I don't have anything. So it means all the decisions the ministers make will be not really passionate about the environment, and all this is like political will is lacking because the individuals that are sitting in those offices, they do not have passion for the environment. And sometimes we had a case in 2012 where a mine was allowed to open in a national park, and the communities and civil society organizations advocated, and the Zambia Environmental Management Agency conducted an impact assessment, and they rejected the fact that the mine should go on. But after the proponents of the mine appealed, the minister gave a go-ahead that the mine should proceed, a decision that shocked the country. And of course, people talked and that was cancelled. But today, the minister, who was minister at that time, is no longer a minister. And this is when he's coming out to say it wasn't his personal decision. It was cabinet decision. So you can imagine the rate at which these things are made. Even if I am minister today, I am speaking right, I know what I want for the environment, I know what I want for my communities, that can work. But it's a cabinet decision. How many people are in the cabinet? The president says this one says that. No matter how much I advocate for it, the case will be closed. So those are the challenges we're facing. But for now, we are trying, we are getting there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mumba. That was long but insightful. So really opens our eyes on addressing these resources. I think the impact and futility when we do not, pull together as a continent. And I'm glad issues like someone is mentioning, that is Charity, about an African blueprint. It is something that we can explore. Move forward with as a platform, those who are participating in this at the moment. So thanks a lot, Mioba. I'd like to ask El Shaddai if she's still here.
Yeah,
yes. El Shaddai, and this is important because I don't know if there is any other country that has the kind of constitution Ethiopia has, the constitution that is actually based on the ethnic differences within the country, because I understand you have, the constitution even allows the ethnic groups to, I don't know how accurate that is, but I'd like you to point out if there is anything, insofar as looking at the effectiveness of it, is this kind of constitution effective in addressing conservation issues? Now that we also see challenges like Ekal mentioned earlier with the indigenous communities. Now, does it, give the indigenous communities the platform to protect or fight for their own rights or something like that? How effective is it?
Yeah, so for the past about 3 decades or more, Ethiopia has been Ethiopia goes by the federal ethnic federalism. So what ethnic federalism is, having boundaries in the countries that are based on ethnicities. And as I've mentioned before earlier, in Ethiopia there are more than 80 ethnic groups in Ethiopia, and then there are 9 regional states in Ethiopia. So it's divided in some of the biggest ethnic groups, and then in the southern one, the Southern National and Peoples consists of a lot of ethnic groups. So in terms of conservation and even politically, ethnic federalism is not very effective. This is because it follows kind of the same formats or structure as, if we go back in history, when Africa was conquered and colonized, kind of like dividing and conquering is what happens when there is ethnic federalism. So in each region of the ethnicities, people living in that region will come to think that will come to refer to the ethnic region more than they do to the country, and they become tied to their ethnic region than they do for the country, and it becomes that's how genocide starts, that's how ethnic tensions start. And when there are ethnic tensions, conservation efforts and environmental efforts are not going to be the problem or the topics that will make the headlines. And conservation, in terms of conservation efforts, or for in terms of civil rights or any political, it hasn't been successful at all. And in the Constitution, actually, there is an article called Article 39, and it says every nation and nationality and people shall have the unrestricted right to self-determination up to succession. So this means that any region, any ethnic region in Ethiopia can can secede from the country and become its own federal state or country. And so this creates more ethnic tensions because, right now there is tension and instability in the north because of ethnic federalism. And when there are fights about lands, usually will lead to civil wars because ethnicities will try to say that this land or this area of land belongs to this ethnic group, and then the other ethnic group says no, this land has belonged to this ethnic group since this, and then it causes a lot of chaos politically. So ethnic federalism is a failed type of federalism. And I think there are a few countries in the world who actually practiced ethnic federalism. I'm not sure, but I think South Sudan maybe, and Pakistan, Nepal, and Yugoslavia were one of the countries, some of the countries that practiced ethnic federalism other than Ethiopia. But ethnic federalism is still being practiced in Ethiopia, and we're still facing the disadvantages of the federal system, this type of federal system.
Okay, thank you very much for the insights.
Yeah.
Shaddai. Yeah. So at least someone is also saying here that ethnic federalism has failed, and Ethiopia should get rid of it soon. But I'm very sure those who actually came up with the concept had very good intentions. I don't know whether it's our typical way of taking advantage of the documents that we have. Maybe that's some other thing we need to explore some other time. But thanks a lot. In the interest of time, I'd like to
add one more thing.
Yes.
Just 1 minute. I'd also like to add, I would like to talk more about the organization that I founded, Green Ethiopia. And I think I mentioned earlier that there are different practices and movements going on in the environment, to combat climate change and to battle like environmental challenges. And Green Ethiopia right now is co-leading a campaign to ban plastic bags in Ethiopia, just like Tanzania and other East African countries. And so we're leading the campaign right now. And I just wanted to, I just wanted to talk about that and let everyone know.
Yeah. Thank you. So Green Ethiopia, yes, you'll share more about how that is going and whether there is possibility for, like having something like this running continent-wide, and that would really be, and I know those who are here are also likely, doing similar or near similar stuff. So partnerships I know are crucial because we are looking at moving the continent in one direction. That being said, Ikal is still here with us, right?
Yes, Jonathan.
Yeah, Ikal, thanks so much. You raised very important points, and romanticization of conservation, I think, especially in Africa, is something that rings true, and you can see people are already talking about it here. And some of the things I'd like to maybe as someone who has been fighting environmental injustice for a while, and also like fighting on behalf of indigenous communities. There is the recent case in South Africa of the environmental activist, defender who was killed. But interestingly, this kind of news seems does not incite an uproar in the continent. I don't know whether fighting for the environment and indigenous communities is not, regarded as something so serious in the continent. I don't know whether there is something we can do about it. And then also there is the question I asked you earlier. Not so sure about the accuracy of it, but at some point I gathered that you met the former Prime Minister of Kenya, who told you, not to fight governments and so on. And my question is, if the government is introducing, for example, projects that will definitely interfere with the environment and affect the communities, especially living in the areas, then why are these things done in the first place? Like, in whose interest? Are they doing it for us or for themselves? And how can we, stop things like this? We have huge renewable energy potential, but we still opt for coal. We have options, but we still route SDR through the Nairobi National Park. How can we stop all these effectively?
Thank you. One, I think the simplification of this whole ethnic federalism, it has, you can look at it from various angles, because territory, land, right to self-determination, then it opens up, allows for people to, if then the center of government is really thinking the same ways linked to the struggles of the people or the aspirations of the people. I think those are the things around how conservation is done, who determines how it is done, and all those things. Development then becomes for the people and not about the state. I needed to say that first. So I think we simplify the idea that it is bad or good, but then it is based on a belief system and the post-colonial and neo-colonialism of somebody else controls what my development looks like. And once people are able to determine how development happens, then all these things that, can open up. And yes, it was the brother to the former prime minister who at an AFDB meeting was a little perturbed that a young girl, at that time I was much younger than now, was questioning the African Development Bank's intent to put money into the Gibe 3 dam. And I had kept going around dealing with where the powers be, that is the directors, the EDs of the different countries. And so he said, I'm hearing of this young girl, Kenyan girl, who's questioning the development. And he kept saying, China is better. I think it's the usual narrative of, a better evil. So AFDB was the better evil. But again, all of it is a capitalist state. When you talk about, the whole environmental and how people are not getting so, angry about the death of, and I guess for me, I don't see I see the interconnectedness around the struggle for justice. And this is a struggle for justice on femicide, on women's, women being killed on the streets, on corporations taking up land, on the death of indigenous environmental activists, on, it really is on the struggle of communities who are unable to produce food for themselves, the dignity of having to wait for the likes of Monsanto and the others to put food on the table. So it's an interconnected thing, and everything goes down to the environment. That you can. That's why I said environment is a form of, it's a political process, because then, when the Nigerians can correct me here, when the fuel that is not of good quality in UK is being dumped in the streets of Nigeria, and then we say, it's not environmental, it is a politics, it is capitalism. So all these things are really interconnected. And so until we start to engage jointly, so we stop having environment, conservation, in this thing is so interlinked, it is painful. That the economic model under which we are so, we are caught up in, because that's why I said, when we talk about, renewable energy, but as long as you're denying people their land, when you take water from them, when food production is not happening, when some young boy or young girl or some young family is mining, under such cruel, environments or under pressure in the DRC for minerals that are going to make the renewable energy that we are pushing for. It is the economic model we have to start to disrupt. And so we need to stop being forced into, because it's like, I don't think it is by default. I think it is by design that we're told environmentalists, trade activists, labor activists, all these things are so interlinked. Until we start to really join the dots, it then becomes an environmental thing that in most of our languages, as you said, greet people in your mother tongue, none of our languages know climate change in our mother tongue. We will tell you stories about what has changed, water has reduced, it's getting drier, it's getting hotter. I'm a pastoralist, we are walking longer distances to get water and pasture, but then the idea is climate change. So how do we then try and link this struggles, this fights and these conversations so that the gender issues, the women's rights, the femicide, indigenous rights, economic models, free trade agreements and all this bunch of things that are thrown at us, given new names, new terminologies, new struggles, it becomes, sexy today and not sexy tomorrow, need to change. And that's where it comes to. And that's why you see, even in the Kenyan context, even as much as we say SGR and infrastructure, you need to be asking ourselves, what is this? We call it under the same term of development. Oh, huge development. We are doing all this for development for whom? And unless we can answer what is this development in the term of development, because development for you means that it's a skyscraper and that means you're taking up my land. That's not development for me. So until we can go back to, again, the economic model, development for who, sustainability, sustainable change, sustainable development for whom, and all those things have to be, because if you really look at the new debates that we are having now, is the mega infrastructure, this push for large infrastructural development, it really doesn't necessarily lead to transformation of people's lives. If you look at, just because you have a huge, coal plant or huge hydro dam, does not necessarily mean, look at the Grand Dinga, for example. The Grand Dinga is actually is a dam being built so that it can go to the mines and extract more minerals for purposes of the multinational companies and the political elite. So the people who actually where the Grand Dinga is, if you look at the continent, there is no place where energy is actually generated in any way supports the community where it's generated. Look at the Lake Turkana wind power. That energy is being generated so that it goes to the main grid and supports other people. So until we start to think a mini grid, small scale, even that renewable energy linked to real change where it is, solar cooperatives, market women owning this sort of energy development, this environmental conversation is going to be a political economy question around who's benefiting from this, who's, and we, sadly, we as so-called civil society become part of the pawn, that we become, the corporations in the donor-driven side, where we get money to campaign for certain things that do not necessarily go down to rural populations, farmers, indigenous populations, and pastoralists whose everyday reality is dependent on an ecosystem that is required, they require for them to survive. So we have to really start to also look internally within ourselves. What are we advocating for? Whose interests are we pushing for? And going for the scope, climate change conversation, are we actually disrupting the system? Because what we need to do is to be disruptors of the current, the narrative as is. And until then, we then end up with a lot of this. And I'm really glad that you held this together, because we have to start to link environment, politics, trade, labor, and all this, really who's at the core of this, and making sure that women and rural populations are at the core of whatever development we are pushing for.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ekal, for highlighting all these. I think this kind of, summarizes the whole conversation in a way. So thanks so much. I think we need to let that sink in properly. But because of time, I'm being reminded here, we have our guests who are to share their thoughts regarding the whole conversation. But before we come to them, I'd like Pamela, Honorable Pamela, before you like to
Jonathan.
Yes.
Yes, I think Aliyu has something to say before we move to Pamela.
Oh, Aliyu is back. Oh, thanks. Okay, fantastic. Aliyu, kindly, before Pamela summarizes from the political, side of things. Aliyu, is he on?
I think he just left. He has been on for a while. Okay, I hope that he returns quickly. Let's listen to Pamela, and then we take Aliyu, and then we go to our guests.
Okay, thank you so much. Jonathan, you wanted me to respond on the issue, on the question about how the EAC is implementing the environment and climate change issues.
Yes.
First of all, I'd like to bring to your attention that you all know that the East African Community was established according to the treaty, which was the agreement which was entered by the 6 partner states. And these 6 partner states are the Republic of South Sudan, Rwanda, Burundi, Kenya, Uganda, and the United Republic of Tanzania. As this treaty has the specific chapter which talks about the issues of environment and natural resource management. So it is the chapter 19, which requires the member states to recognize the development activities which may have the negative impact on the environment, led to the degradation of the environment and depletion of the natural resources. Also, the member states are also required to recognize that clean and healthy environment is a prerequisite for sustainable development, and agrees to, among other things, that to take the measures to foster the cooperation in the joint and efficient management and sustainable utilization of natural resources within the community. Besides that, member states also, they agree to cooperate and coordinate their policies and actions for protection and conservation, especially on the natural resources and the environment, against all forms of degradation and pollution emanating from the development activities. So the East African Community established different programs which targets to these the two aspects of climate change and environment. And the first program was the Climate Change Adaptation and Mitigation Program, which had various intentions, but in responding to these intentions, the member states developed people-centered programs, namely like the climate smart agriculture, which is CSA, which initiates environmental conservation projects as well as the stratagems in form of acts, policies, and strategies. They also establish climate change coordination unit within the internal structure of the EAC Secretariat. And also there is a climate change technical working group, which is CCTWG, which provides technical guidance in the design and implementation of climate change and adaptation. So looking at the Secretariat, these are the programs which works under Secretariat. You can see as an assembly, we work together with other organs to make sure that there is the implementation of whatever is happening or which is being guided by the treaty is kept well and they are all implemented. But as an assembly also, we have a responsibility to make sure that we provide the awareness to the community, like conducting trainings and workshops regarding the issues on climate change and environment. And also there are some initiatives which were undertaken by the assembly, which was the tree planting at the University of Dodoma, which is among the biggest universities. And we conducted this because we wanted the community to feel the impact of the importance of being in this community. And also, within the assembly, we have the responsibilities to make laws. So there are some private members' bills, which is concerning, one was the, it's called the Climate Change Private Members' Bill, which is still ongoing, but it is really getting support from members because most of the members of the East African Legislative Assembly are really sensitive to what is really happening to the community. Again, there is another program under EAC, which is called the Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Program, which deals with the both natural calamities and man-made activities, which gives the thread towards the realization of the EAC core objective and mandate of widening and deepening the cooperation among the member states. And also you can see it has increased the risk of the loss of the livelihood of the East African citizen. So that's why we really focus on this, so that we make sure we protect the people of the community. Again, there is another program which is established under the East Africa, which is the Disasters Risk Reduction and Management Technical Working Group, which is among many others. Again, it provides the technical guidance. Another program is the Terrestrial Ecosystem Program, which the East African region is facing numerous environmental challenges, and it deals with all these things regarding to ecosystem issues. Again, the last one is the aquatic ecosystem programs. Again, it has the crucial role of water in accomplishing the needed socio-economic development goals. And again, hello?
We can hear you, yes.
You can hear me, okay.
Yeah.
It calls for new institutions for water together with management and all the frameworks which deals with the actions which were designed to address the existing challenges, especially on the water supply and management chain. So these are the programs which are established, and the last program was the pollution control program. This is the program and Secretariat also, which focuses on the issues regarding the reduction of pollution, especially on the water areas. You know, when we talk about the water areas in the East African community, we talk about all the rivers and all the oceans which are around here. And the name of this program is called the Pollution Control Technical Working Group again, which provide technical leadership again in the management and the control of pollution in the region. And also it focuses on the polythene control and management bill, which was also underway by last year before we went to Corona. So this is another bill. I think we need to bring it back as members of the Assembly, because we can see also this bill is very important to the Assembly. And because now we have seen some issues which are happening around the East African community needs more voices of the policymakers, especially we politicians. You all know that sometimes politicians can make things move on or they can block things. So I think it's a hard time now. Either when we bring the bill on board, I'm supposed to share with you, especially the colleagues who are from the East African community, so that also you can put pressure to those members who are coming to the East African Legislative Assembly, so that they support these bills and make sure that we ensure that they become laws. So I will share with you, Jonathan, and the team to see how do we push or we put some pressure so that at least we get things done. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pamela. So I mean, we can see progress now in the East African Legislative Assembly. Now all we need to hear is how, like we can strengthen or ensure, like political will. As a politician, maybe you can tell us that, like, what is really wrong with politicians? Like, why can't they just, do the right things or push things to happen and like make sure every project, whatever we have on paper, is implemented actually. So in the interest of time, I'd like to invite the guests to share their thoughts. That is Dr. Alpha and Dr. Priscilla. I think they're ready. Yes, I can see Dr. Alpha, kindly.
Jonathan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
The Nigeria was supposed to do a recap, which I think there are issues that we should address.
There is an echo. There is an echo on your end.
Can you hear me, right?
Yes.
Yes. For the sake of fairness, the issues that the Nigerians should address so that we can move from there.
I lost you somewhere, Isa. Your network?
Yes. You can hear me?
There is an echo. Maybe if there is something you need to switch off on your end.
Mute your mic. I said for the sake of fairness.
Yes.
Issues the Nigerian delegates should address so that we continue from there. I'm a Nigerian. I think that's sake we should do justice to this.
Aliu, I can see Aliu is here. Yes.
Yes.
Aliu can carry on, right? Before our guests
left again. Yes.
So Issa, it seems that Leo has an issue with connections because every time he's ready to talk, something happens. He just kind of exits. I think it's a problem with his network. So Pamela.
Yes.
Pamela, did you want to tell us how we can make politicians make things happen?
Yeah, as we've said before, like you all know that this thing comes with passion. First, most of the politicians, we found ourselves falling into these positions, but really we are, being a politician doesn't mean that you have that competence of being a politician. Sometimes there are those politicians who found themselves into the politics, but they don't have those competences. First of all, we really need to bring these things into their attention by creating the awareness of the importance of these issues. Especially either because, you know, when now people are being called politicians, they will need to attend the workshops. So if we as a team, we can agree that we really need to sensitize these people. Yeah, there are most of them, they are senior people, but they will need to be sensitized. You need to sensitize them so that they understand why do we need these things at this moment. And another thing is to make them understand what is the impact of what we are doing and why are we crying for it. But another room which we have, apart from going to the awareness creation or capacity building or whatever, I think is through bringing the petition, because there is a room according to the treaty, that civil society or any other group, because any other member of the community is treated equally, you are allowed to petition the assembly on the matters which you think are very important to the community. And once you bring the petition to the assembly, that petition will be channeled through the specific committee, and after at committee level, you get time to interact with the committee, and if it is necessary also to conduct the workshop to make sure that all these committee members, or if it might need the whole house to be sensitized about what is that petition for, you bring it on their attention, and after that, that petition is being debated in the house, and once it is debated in the house, someone can bring also can propose a bill regarding to that petition. Or sometimes when that petition is being debated, we can get the clarification or we can get the guidance from the ministers, where the ministers, you know, they are the implementers of whatever laws we are making, because the ministers are coming from the partner state. So once it gets the support of the house, now we will go for the further step to make sure that whatever we petitioned goes into implementation, and I think that will be the proper way to use.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pamela. I think now we can go straight to
Aliyu is back. Aliyu, you can carry on, please. If you can hear me, he should just do his recap and then we can move from there. Olga.
Okay, I was recapping and I said that desert encroachment, you know, from the Sahara and all of that down to the northern Nigeria has forced pastoralists down south, and the further they go, the more encounter they have with farmers and the more conflict it results when pastoralists stray into farmlands and eat up crops. You know, and that has resulted in a huge conflict really that we see, you know, between the herders and the farmers in the country. But before I wrap up, let me just make a little reference here to when Ika was speaking, and she made mention of dumping oil on Nigeria. No, actually, no such things happens here. You know, we don't get fuel dumped on us. What we do, it's probably what she meant was that we import fuel. Now, yes, we do that. We export crude oil and then we, you know, import the petroleum product. And that's how it happens that way. Now, where the issue is when it comes to maybe substandard is with when I talked about people breaking pipelines, scooping the oil and then refining on their own. You know, these are local refineries that don't meet standard. Therefore, there is every chance that they could end up refining substandard products and getting it into the market with all the attendant hazards that all of that could have. But for like the past 15 years, we have not had any major incidents involving counterfeited petroleum products. So we can say that even that is on the minimal. But I do agree with the very fact that some of the reasons why we have these challenges, you know, with managing the environment and all of that is purely for economic reasons. Yes, I agree, because you and some of the examples that we have had here in Nigeria. And I may also want to chip in because I have not heard anybody mention this aspect of it, the corruption aspect of it, because it is not every time that the ministers or the policy makers are inept. It is not every time. Sometimes you have very sound people there, environmentalists, people who have these issues hands-on. I'll give you an example. Nigeria.
Network.
Between 2015, environment was Amina Mohammed, somebody who was hands-on, where she had been a senior special assistant on the MDGs when it was MDGs, and she's currently the Deputy Secretary General of the UN. Very competent person and all that. So at that time, we were even floating green bonds and all that. So it's not every time that we have such people, but that are ineptitude. You know, that ineptitude is. Sometimes it could be corruption because of the kinds of living. The environment is huge. You think about it, whether it is gold, it is petroleum, it's agriculture, it's everything. There is none of these things that you do absent environment. Therefore, there is a lot of favor to be curried. There is one nepotism, there is one corruption or the other that is always available for people here who, despite competence, can choose to look the other way and do what is not right. So there has to be the framework, because I was making an example of some institutional framework, for instance, that we have for the Green Great Wall. Nigeria has established an agency for that. Nigeria has an agency for climate change and all of that. But then it then comes to issue of funding, which goes back to the economy that I am agreeing with. So if you don't have the resource, how do you do it? Because, for instance, to clean up the Niger Delta over the next 3 decades, it is estimated that Nigeria needs $500 billion to do it. That's huge, so huge. At the moment, Nigeria's national budget is just about $13 billion. And so when you go to the subnational level, because Nigeria, we have 36 states, these are other levels of intervention, you know, that are there, that is outside of the federal government whenever we talk about this thing. So it's multi-layered, it is multifaceted, and the challenge is sometimes the communities themselves are not cooperating. It's not every time that government is guilty, because in certain areas in the country, for instance, you take a development project there, you know, that's supposed to restore the environment. Youth organizations mobilize themselves and tell you, look, you must settle us before you go ahead, meaning that you must give them money before you bring that development there. So these are all factors that we must consider when we are articulating these issues in order for us to come up with genuine, solutions, you know, that are practicable.
Okay, Oga, we can move ahead.
Thank you very much, Aliyu, for laying out the Nigerian issues. I mean, if we had time, we talk about, you know, like the likes of Ken Saro-Wiwa trying to stand up for the rights of the Ogoni people and the Niger Delta, and then the execution that followed that. And Ikal has also shared some articles here. I think that is in relation to some of the points Aliu raised, you know, like, but one question I keep asking myself is, you know, the oil from Africa. I mean, we have, you know, like the controversy surrounding that, including the fact that, you know, we have oil here and then still importing from other countries. And I'm very sure if we all get to read the articles that are shared here, we'll get to understand further some of the deeper issues in relation to oil, the black market and stuff. So thank you very much. I don't know whether you wanted to add something, Issa, on that, or we go straight to the guests and hear what they have to say about the conversation.
Let's go straight to the guest. I think we have exhausted more than the time we scheduled for this conference, so we can continue, please.
Okay. Thank you very much. I can see, yeah, Dr. Alpha is back. So over to you, Dr. Alpha. Dr. Alpha, your mic is off.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. Let me start by once again acknowledging the efforts of the organizers and for putting together all these eloquent speakers who have been able to make fundamental contribution to the conference of this day. My work is simplified because from the analysis we've listened to so far, from Tunisia to Uganda to Namibia, Zambia, Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, and Nigeria, the common slogan is that there are policies in place, but there seems to be a lacuna between policy formulation and implementation. And for instance, looking at the Nigerian experience, the basis for environmental policy in Nigeria is the 1999 Constitution. And Section 20 of the 1999 Constitution clearly, you know, stipulates not just how the environment can be managed, but how it could be improved upon. And in addition to that, Nigeria is signatory to many international agreements, many international pacts on how the environment should be managed. But the bane of environmental sustainability in Nigeria is that of the failure of implementation. For instance, the clamor to get justice as far as the environment is concerned is not new in Nigeria. And as the speaker from Nigeria clearly spelled out, the late Kensaro Wiwa and the Etogoni 9 actually championed the cause to redress the injustice, you know, orchestrated by the oil multinationals who have contaminated their environment and sources of livelihood, especially in Ogoni land, as a result of their exploration activities. And it will interest you to recall that at a time that Nigeria was even experiencing one of the most autocratic regimes in history during the regime of Abacha, And at the time that a Nigerian, Chief Emeka Anyaoku, was heading the Commonwealth of Nations, during the meeting of the Commonwealth of Nations in Auckland in 1995, the Ogoni 9 were murdered, and that led to the Nigeria being seen as a pariah state, and it was ostracized. It was upon return to democracy in 1999 that it was even readmitted into most of the international organizations. So if you look at it, there are other cases of tree felling as a result of poverty, serious deforestation without any commensurate afforestation. And this is aggravated by poverty. People don't have means of livelihood, and they go into the forest to fetch firewood for sale in order to eke out a livelihood. There are cases of illegal mining in different parts of the country, from Zamfara to Kogi, coal mining, gold mining, and people are dying on a daily basis as a result of these gully erosions falling on them and other issues. So these are a series of issues on ground. Then we have littering of the environment. There is no clear-cut policy to mitigate this kind of tendencies. People traveling in vehicles, as they finish eating, they throw plastics, out. As people stroll in the street, they drink sachet water, throw it. There is no clear-cut policy to address all these things. Then there is the issue of open defecation. Nigeria claims that it's embarking on actions to stop this, but this amounts to mere rhetoric. The speaker from Nigeria also mentioned the case of a crisis orchestrated by the grazing by the herders. This has led to a lot of crises, and there should be a clear-cut policy to address this. Then the issue of power outage. The power instability in Nigeria has led to a lot of, people use generators, leading to carbon emissions, and in some cases, some people even die, especially in the time of heat. They operate their generators, and carbon monoxide will get in, and lots of people die. But a lot of money has been channeled into power reforms, but no commensurate result is seen. Billions of naira have, gone down the drain. So we equally have the rivers shrinking. The two major rivers, the rivers Niger and Benue, have shrunk monumentally. And even government's efforts to dredge the rivers have been mere window dressing. So there is no any serious work done. Then the case of Lake Chad too, people's sources of livelihood, fishing and the rest, it has even reduced to a very little water channel. So these are cases that are confronting us in Nigeria. So there is actually serious need by the National Assembly to formulate policies and review existing ones to ensure that government sit up and resort to embarking on policies and implementation, of these policies in order to redress these phenomenal challenges that we face. And it is very important for us, especially that this conference has coincided with a 5 years anniversary of the Paris Agreement. So it's topical and contemporary, and efforts should be made by non-governmental organizations and activists to ensure that they build their resilience as far as this is concerned, to prevail on government to resort to doing better things, and in terms of policy formulation and implementation. So the crux of the matter is the political will, to do it. The political will on the part of the leaders that come to power, and the need for activists, environmentalists, subnational groups not to fold their arms, not to give up, in order to prevail on government, to build a synergy with them to address all these issues. I think at this point I have to yield the floor to Dr. Priscilla to take on from there. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be part of this robust deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you very
much.
much.
Yeah, Dr. Patrick.
Yes. Jonathan, you want to invite me officially?
Yes. It's an honor to invite you officially, Dr. Priscilla. Yeah, coming hot in the heels of Dr. Alpha's thoughts. So kindly proceed, Dr. Priscilla. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jonathan. You'll allow me not to put on my camera because the bandwidth has been bad at some point. And then my network is a little shaky and I don't want to take more of your time after these remarks. We clearly are on a good path in Africa based on what I have heard from all the presenters today. I think we are on a good path and there is hope for environmental related issues in Africa. My only concern is that politics is not the way. It will not be the only way to get to Canaan, as people would say, to get to the promised land where we will have most of the issues that we have raised in this presentation on environment. Now, most of the presenters are focused on a myriad of issues, but very few of them actually talked about the positives or the milestones that have been achieved in their countries. I think we focused on the deficit so much because that's exactly what we confront every day, except the lady from Ethiopia spoke a little bit and was able to actually show how milestones that are made through the government and through the certain initiatives that are funded by the government in Ethiopia. Eka was very articulate in terms of pointing out that as much as all these efforts for green energy, for alternate source of power, all these efforts that are being made by various initiatives on environment, she pointed out, and for me it came out as the pharmacon effect of those efforts. There is always the other side of the coin that we are not talking about. Yeah, so that if we are dealing with green energy, what are the side effects of the green energy and how do we mitigate that? I think we are focusing more on production of these energies or any other environmental friendly initiatives that are being initiated in different parts of Africa. But we are forgetting about the side effects of those. I started by saying that, and Eka noted that the interconnectedness of environmental issues with many other aspects of life. And even at policy level, at government level, at political level, this interconnectedness of these issues play out. But we find that they are not coordinated. Responses to some of our concerns, environmental concerns, are not coordinated. So that whatever NEMA does in Kenya and whatever certain policies that are enacted through probably the mining industry does, there is a lot of unconnectedness, uncoordinatedness of focus towards the environmental. And she was quite right to say that even if these environmental issues are articulated in mining, let's say mining, farming, now there's a GMO talk coming up, they're articulated, but they are not the central thing. So who does the central job? Yeah, the civil society is coming and the activist society is coming, but also it was lacking in terms of them telling us how they engage. How they engage the policymakers and how they engage the communities, because we don't want them acting as the go-between the policymakers and the community. We want a coordinated effort between those three factions. That is the civil service, the civil groups, the community, the citizens, and the policymakers, and that extends to the political arena. Corruption, of course, is a big issue in Africa and anywhere in the world, I guess. And I think just like COVID has come and taught us serious lessons about our hygiene and the way we carry out ourselves, like allowed each other, I think environment will be the next target. It will come and really bite us because it will teach us, it will take us to some levels that some of these issues that have been taken for granted. If you go to Kibera, people living in very polluted area, Korogosho area, near the general dump site. Look at the dams, these big dams that they're setting up. And then there's really no kind of prior consideration of how that may affect the environment around. There is this big romanticization of environmental initiatives like let us plant trees. The politicians are just doing this for a show off. There's really, we don't see efforts or follow-up efforts. They are not really made, they're not being made, we are not being made aware of what follow-up methods are there. I'm part of a Rotary Club in my area here, and one of the biggest target is to plant 1 million trees around the Kiambu County and around the Murang'a County. So we go out there, we plant trees in hospital, we plant trees in whatever we may find, but there is really no follow-up of whether those trees are taken care of to grow or whether they are, they are taken care of. Then that leaves us to ask, as an enthusiast, I ask, are we really making any effort? Are we really serious about what we are doing? We have all these ideas, but if we don't coordinate our efforts, if we do not empower the citizens, if we do not work with those children in primary schools, in nursery schools, in secondary schools, so that by the time they are mature, they know exactly what to do. They know how to be responsible about the environment. I think those children one day will be the politicians we'll have in parliament. They will be the people making laws. They will be the people passing legislation. They will be the people sitting in policy formulation sitting. I mean, I don't remember myself when I was young, a very concerted effort or like very intended or very big intention of really capacitating us in terms of taking care of our environment more than we were taught how to take care of ourselves. I mean, it should not have been equated, but I think we should take environmental issues with that kind of sincerity. The way we teach hygiene, now the way we teach business skills, the way we teach basic survival skills. I think it's time that education, it is time that environmental activists, it is time that our policy, it is time that our laws, it is time that the government and politicians become an ensemble that will play together towards finding proper way forward for environmental issues. I asked on our chat today before I came up whether there is any term for environment in your mother tongue. Jonathan, do you have any?
Hello. Okay, I'm on now. So, Dr. Priscilla, I think we have one, but it's more of, I think, corrupted from the word surrounding. So, in my vernacular, we call it alora, but alora is something that, like surrounds us, So, I don't know whether that is accurate.
I don't know, but what I'm saying, it is not as direct as health. You have a word for health. You have a word for, for some, you have very direct words for some of the concepts that you deal with at your rural level. Environment, most communities don't have a word for it. So when we go to them and talk to them about environment, what are we talking about? If you talk about surrounding, Jonathan, it really doesn't really mean equate environment. Is it there where we should start as activists? Is it there where we should start so that we come up with a grounded concept of this challenge that is ahead of us? And the moment, so it's just not something that the communities think. I went to Kibera one time. There is a school that is next to the dump site in not Kibera, in Korogosho. And it's a music school. And I went there as a teacher of music. But the environment those children are learning in, it is terrible. I couldn't sit there for an hour without coughing my chest. And these children have to sing, they have to play instruments, they have to come to school every day. So I asked, what have you done about this issue? Can you either move the school, can you find it relocated, or can you do something about the environment? And the guy there told me, you know, there are people working on it. It is quite removed from, they didn't think it's a problem that they can do something about. And they were saying, we really do not know what they are working on, but we are told they are working on it. You can see the disconnection between real people and people who call themselves activists. Yeah, there is a disconnection in terms even at the knowledge level, in terms of sensitization level, in terms of engagement level. This issue of environment cannot be left to politics. That is for sure. And that is what we have been saying in this city. It has to be participatory and it has to start from the grassroots level. I don't think the people in Turkana, people who are already mining oil around in their neighborhood, I don't think if we don't involve them at the ground level, if we don't continually involve them in terms of making laws or bylaws that favor them, if we don't involve them in terms of channeling their concern, a channel that can be heard and can be acted on, if we don't involve them in writing policies that involve their own environment, then we are losing this battle. I think that is my view on all this. I also felt that the conference, being the first one, I think this is the first one of the kind.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
It was quite broad in scope, which was a good thing because it allowed you to actually hear a lot of issues from at one sitting. But I would suggest that in the coming one, if we want to achieve depth, then we need to take a mouthful, just what we can take, so that the young people or the activists working on the ground can really unpack these issues. I would be interested to hear in the next one about the strategies that are being used to engage communities. As an artist myself, and as an activist in my own way through performing arts, the alternative ways of engagement. And if you, I talk this because I have worked with people working with conflict areas, and we have explored the alternative way of resolving conflict. And we know environment and conflict are quite linked together. And therefore we need to be able to just not listen to people and write papers and present them in boardrooms, but be able to engage in creative ways, so that people themselves on the ground can be able to really come to terms with what they are facing. They can really be able to voice out their own strategies of mitigating the issues they are facing from their own point of view, because that's where sustainability will be achieved. When people own the processes, when people own the strategies, then they will achieve sustainability at that level. And then at that point, then we can talk about SDGs and 2060 or whatever we are going after this, because the people themselves have to drive. We have also to tap into the indigenous approaches to environmental management that has to do with indigenous education. We have to go back. We are Africans, we are cultural people. We have to go back there and see what was really happening before this colonial education stuff came up. What was going on? How did they manage their own environment? And how can we learn from that? And then how can we then define strategies that are culturally friendly to the people that we are dealing with? Thank you very much, John.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Priscilla, for those eye-opening views and thoughts. I think you're right in your observations as well. So next time we'll try to kind of narrow it down. We really wanted to get these issues there broadly because we have, like significant challenges facing the continent. So this fleshed out, and then you're accurate in the sense that next time now we need to start holding this, like focusing on really specific issues. The other thing you've talked about, Kibera, other challenges in the slum, and I think one of the participants here, Sam Bindi, is really also on the ground in Kibera and has faced a lot of challenges. And I think one thing you also share in common, Dr. Priscilla, you are an artist, a musician. I remember there was that song you sang, environment related. I don't know whether you have any recorded songs.
Well, sometimes when you work with conferences, they give you what they can give you for that particular time. So I think now I will challenge Isa and you too, so that next time I have a song, you just need to fund.
Yeah. And also now that this platform has brought us together, Sam is also working seriously in terms of recording environmental songs, or songs meant to, like raise awareness. I think you can really work together in that sector.
You know why I have hope with music and other arts? If you look at just a quick one, people, if you look at the Uganda issue, and I will digress a little just to illustrate this. Uganda had been named as one of the countries that had the highest prevalence of HIV/AIDS. Do you know how they turned their lives around? Do you know how they turned the narrative of the disease? It was through the art. And sometimes me and Sam may compose nice songs about the environment. But I think the music that has a chance, or the acts that have a chance to change the environment, must come from the people themselves. They must talk to each other through the art, written by them, composed by them. All we need to do, me and Sam, is to facilitate that music to come in and to have a target, a topic that is defined by you people who are deeply in an environment. So we engage them and we let them come up with their own messages of environmental management. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really quite, because I remember now that you've mentioned Uganda, Ben Talley is here, can tell us that Philly Lutaya, one of the Ugandan artists, through his song Alone and Frightened, helped fight stigma around HIV back in the days when I think HIV had just, been discovered in the continent, and there was so much stigma around it, and that kind of held people, work towards accepting what was happening. So thank you very much, Priscilla. You and Sam can connect after this and then see what you can do. I can see Sam has shared a link to one of his songs. Yes. So thanks so much. And now that we are coming to the end of this, I'd like to move to Isa. I call him Oga, my brother. So Isa, kindly.
Okay, Jonathan, thank you very much. I want to, first of all, appreciate all those who found time to join us, most especially Dr. Alpha and Dr. Priscilla, who have actually done quite justice to the tasks that they were assigned. If we look at the entire conversation, the entire gamut of the conversation lies between the bridge that creates or that has been created between policy and implementation. Policy is where politics comes in, and implementation is where each and every one of us gets to play a role. If you go across the continent and across the world, you will find out that there are beautiful policies on paper. In our case here in Nigeria, when you come down back home, you see that there's a serious disconnect between these policies and their implementation. And so this conversation becomes actually very critical in the face of the global climate crisis that we face. The loss of biodiversity, constant deforestation as we have it, and all of the other issues that we continue to have each year round, each time. And so this conversation becomes key. And I particularly want to agree with Dr. Priscilla on the scope of this conference. We hope that subsequent conference will be more specific and will have more depth so that our speakers and our guest appearance can actually do better justice to whatever discussion that we're having. Oga, my brother, I think you can actually go on and wrap up, and then we call it a day.
Yeah, thank you very much, Isa, and thanks so much, Dr. Alpha, Dr. Priscilla, the speakers. I'd like to really thank you, particularly Ikal is in the field and had to really like find, create time and also be here. So really appreciate and respect that. Pamela also, having been still under observation after getting, the twins, the blessings and the honor of still appearing and, sharing your perspective. That's really amazing. Thanks, Charity, being with us from the beginning up to now. Sam, thanks so much. Mohammed, Karen, Dindi, Faith, Jimmy, Ben, Tale, El Shaddai, representing Ethiopia. We really appreciate. Lily is here. And then thanks so much to Biophilic Conversations for helping us, like ensuring that this went on seamlessly. Most of us, we are not really great at this, holding this virtual platform. So thanks so much, Biophilic, for the honor. And thanks everyone. Asanteni sana, as we say in Kiswahili here in Kenya. Thank you for being with us up to now. I don't know whether anyone else would like to say goodbye, but from my end, this has really been really important, hearing these issues. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's more this, sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jonathan, and everyone. Good evening.